Class is in session. College football hitting the book show Monday, September 22nd. Ian Cameron, Connor Mack with you, ready to break down the college football slate for this upcoming week. And this is the week that I think a lot of people, when they looked at the schedule, this upcoming week is the week people circled as, whoa, that's one hell of a week as far as big matchups, big games, high quality, high stakes college football matchups taking place this week, and we've got a ton of them on the slate. It is a really, really strong week of games. You know, if you go on down the list, I mean, Notre Dame, Arkansas, you've got Louisville, Pitt, you've got obviously you go on down the further to the real big ones. Look at with the way Mississippi State's playing. You know, Tennessee and Mississippi State's a pretty solid game. Baylor. Well, not Baylor, Oklahoma State, but USC, Illinois, Auburn, Texas A&M, Oregon, Penn State, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Washington. It is just one of those weeks where there are, you know, a ton of big-time matchups taking place this week in college football. So I am excited to talk about it. We will dive right in, and we will begin with the Thursday nighter taking place this week to get it going. Army and East Carolina. East Carolina, 5.5-point home favorites, 52.5 the total. Well, I think I've had my fill of East Carolina after last week. I'm not sure I'm rushing to get excited about backing them here, laying 5.5 against Army. To say disappointing would be an understatement to describe East Carolina's performance against BYU last weekend. That was obviously a rough game for them. It was a rough offensive game for certainly Caton Hauser and the Pirates. Play calling, I can't fathom for the life of me how we throw a pass right at the end of the first half down by our own goal line, and it gets picked and returned for a touchdown. That was the play. That totally changed the game. East Carolina was dead as a fucking doornail from that point on. BYU is just a brutal, brutal play call at the end of the half. You're still in the game, even though your offense is struggling. Just run it out and get to halftime. That is so disappointing from East Carolina as far as their decision-making there at the end of the first half. And it cost them because really that game, BYU was already in control. You know, but at least at that time, you had a chance, you know, to maybe still hang in that game and have a chance to win it. And unfortunately, like I said, it was just a dismal play call there right at the end of the half, and it ends up costing East Carolina. The offense struggled. The defense obviously got worn out later in the game, and East Carolina was able to, BYU's offense was able to make them pay. Meanwhile, you've got Army coming off this really exhausting, physically especially, real physically exhausting war with North Texas, where they fall behind big early. They were down 21-0 in that game at one point. But somehow after that, they get their offense going, and they really didn't get stopped by North Texas the rest of the game. Army almost scored on every possession the rest of the way. They ended up getting back into it. They ended up coming all the way back and getting a field goal at the end of the fourth quarter to tie the game at 38 and force overtime. But North Texas scores on their first overtime possession, and Army gets stopped on their possession in overtime. And North Texas survives with a 45-38 win over Army. And thankfully, because I was on North Texas, it was one of my bets I really liked on the card, and they were able to hang on. But it was an exhausting game. You know, a lot of snaps for on the field, especially for that Army offense. And you wonder now, going on the road on a short week, coming off the physical toll that they likely incurred from that North Texas game that went to overtime. You worry about that on a short week here for this Army Black Knights team. And East Carolina's defense, at least a little bit against the run, has been better so far this season. So this is kind of a tough one. I mean, situationally, I think there's things to like about East Carolina. But if that offense isn't any better than what I saw last week, and the play calling's not any better, you know, laying 5.5 is not exactly something I'm excited about doing. So it's not a game I have a particularly strong opinion on, at least early in the week. C-Mac, what do you think? Army, East Carolina.
Yeah, I don't too. You know, I think that game, I thought the pick was huge right before. Because, I mean, when I was looking, even watching the game, and the stats are pretty close in that game against BYU. And BYU did take care of it late. I have to give them that. And they had a couple of big plays, big run for touchdown to end the game. But Hauser, you can't settle for field goals. You can't throw picks. Like, it just they're moving the ball, and they just couldn't. Yeah, just horrible at home. I thought they'd play a lot better, but shout out to BYU for going there and playing well. Yeah, Army can't. I mean, for getting down, they do what they do, run the ball. This has made North Texas not the best defense. Kind of ran all over them in this game. I think it's a bounce back for ECU. I think they're going to be able to move the ball here on Army.
Yes.
In this
that
game.
Army defense is not good.
It's not good.
Texas did what they wanted. Yep.
And take care of the ball. I think their team total here is live, and I don't know. I don't think their defense is great either. Is East Carolina a little bit right now? So even though they've been a little bit better against the run, I think Army could still have some success. So yeah, this is a tough one. But I was looking at East Carolina. I think they could get their points maybe if you don't want to lay the 4.5. I got to think they play better. Second game at home here, or they just lose. Even on the short week, you got to think they're pissed off, especially on these standalone games. You know what I mean? Only game Thursday night. Play should be rocking. So I'm looking at East Carolina here. Their team total.
Yeah, no doubt.
Maybe the over gets there. I don't know.
I do lean over.
Right.
I do. I think maybe with the total I get there, because here's what you worry about with Army is obviously limited possessions, fewer possessions, take time.
Yeah, no big runs sometimes, and you just get bottled down. Yeah, the clock just ticks. Yeah.
But they're moving the ball. I was impressed. Like North Texas has a much better defense this year, and then once they stopped turning it over, Army early in the game, they drove the ball every possession against North Texas, and they scored on almost every possession. And that's a much better North Texas defense. So I give Army credit. And I said East Carolina's overall defensive numbers have been better this year for sure. But there's still some concerns. They did give up 172 rushing yards to BYU in that game last week. You don't have obviously the extra time to prepare for Army for this game. And you look back at last year, these teams played, obviously their AAC conference foes, 45 points allowed. Now, that was the great Bryson Daly Army team, but still, East Carolina had obviously a lot of problems stopping Army last year in a 45-28 loss. So I think the over could be there. It could be in play for this game on Thursday night. All right, Friday night, we've got Florida State and Virginia. Florida State, 7.5-point road favorites, 57.5 the total. No doubt Florida State's been ridiculously impressive. No one can deny that. But before we get all carried away with the Florida State praise and before we just run to lay 7.5 points here with Florida State, we do have to factor in that they played one really good team, and that's Alabama, and they looked obviously very impressive. They won outright as almost 2 touchdown underdogs, 31-17. They haven't played anyone since then, though. East Texas A&M, 77-3, and one of the worst teams in FBS college football this year, Kent State, last week. They ended up winning 66-10. I had the Florida State team total over and didn't even have to sweat that last week against Kent State. And the thing is, too, I said, they're off a bye week, too, Florida State going into that game. They're probably not going to look past Kent State because of that. And sure enough, they put a 66-point spot on the board. Look, I had my doubts. I didn't know it was going to work out with Tommy Castellanos, but he's been excellent, when we've seen him in there at quarterback for Florida State. They've been able to run the ball, throughout the course of the season, no question. And you look at a bunch of their receivers. They've got weapons. Their O-line's been very good so far this year. Defense, which was horrific last year, also looks a lot better. We have the one quality opponent to look back on to see that they've improved defensively, and that was the Alabama game. Alabama couldn't run the football. All the yardage was through the air. And yes, Ty Simpson did move the ball a bit through the air, but they did a good job, holding Alabama down in opposition territory and in the red zone. So in their one game against a quality opponent, Florida State's defense looked a lot better, and obviously their offense had a ton of success there against Alabama. So this is definitely their toughest game since then. Now, Virginia's not on Alabama's level, but, Virginia's been solid to begin the year, 3-1 straight up and against the spread. They blew out Coastal Carolina, blew out William and Mary, blew out Stanford last week, 48-20. The only loss was a tough loss that went back and forth against NC State, 35-31. Virginia, I like their passing game in particular. When you look at the run game for Virginia, it's also been pretty solid. They've had nice balance. They're averaging 6 yards per carry, 251 rushing yards per game, 313 passing yards per game. It's been a very well-balanced Virginia offense. Chandler Morris at quarterback's gotten off to a great start. Jamari Taylor, a really strong running back for this group. They can run, they can throw. Florida State, they certainly look a lot better. We'll see how this one plays out. Obviously, this is an ACC matchup. The thing that bothers me about taking Florida State is Virginia's got the kind of offense that if they fall down by 2 touchdowns, back door's wide open with a team like Virginia. They could easily come right through the back door and cover a number like this. But I don't think I feel confident lining up to fade Florida State. They could be a lot better, and the way they just dummied Alabama in that first game, like if they play that way here, they can win by double digits. There's no question about that. That being said, this is a road game on a Friday night.
First road game. Come on.
First road game. And I think I feel like Florida State is certainly better than Virginia, but it's first road game. You've waxed a couple of cupcakes since the big win against Alabama, not really running to lay 7.5. I don't know if I trust Virginia. I think I can trust Virginia to score a little bit, though. I like that offense with Chandler Morris and company. I think Florida State could do a number on Virginia's defense because that's the concern to me, CMAC, Virginia's defense. Virginia's really played one capable quality offense this year. C.J. Bailey and NC State. They gave up 35 points. They couldn't stop them in the second half of that game. So give me the over in this game. That's what I like most of all. Over 57.5. CMAC, Florida State, Virginia.
Yeah, I can't take the over. Maybe it gets there. I just think the game's too big here. Friday night on the road. I think we could see it a little different, but maybe not. Maybe there is a bunch of points in this game. This is why I like Virginia a little bit. I love Morris. This guy slings the ball. Now, it can get him in trouble. We've seen, back with North Texas, he could throw some picks, but you talked about they've been pretty balanced as well. I mean, this is a massive game. Friday night at home. Florida State definitely looks better. What do you take from
I do think Florida State's a little weaker against the pass on defense than they are against the run, and that could matter against a guy like Morris, who, as you mentioned, he can sling the rock.
Well, and you kind of got to just go off what you've seen in these 3 small games. Of course, they win at Alabama home. They have the next 2 just cupcake games at home where they blow them out. So, have we really seen this defense, especially on the road, hostile place? So if you believe in Florida State, and take them here, if you think this is cheap, I can't. To me, this is just, I have to stay away or maybe look at Virginia. I don't know if I could get there in the end of the day. So I'm off now. I'm leaning Virginia.
All right, there you go. Leaning Virginia. I think it's a very fascinating game, though. Fascinating game.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. If Florida State drills Virginia, let's say 38-20 or something like that, then we got to start thinking Florida State can win the ACC at that point.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think we're at that point. And I know Virginia, there's going to be tougher opponents in the conference for Florida State on the way as opposed to Virginia, but still, this is their second real look against somewhat of a competent team to see what this Florida State team is all about. Well,
of course, the big win at home, Alabama, but and their defense, of course, and then Castellanos. Maybe he's got a great defense, and but I've seen him turn the ball over enough over his years. But maybe if he's got a great offensive line, everything around him, maybe it'll work for him. But yeah, this one. When I was going through this last night, I'm like, man, this is a big game Friday night. There's a lot of big games, like you talked about.
Good one too. I didn't even mention this off the top. This is a really good Friday night game, too, in the Big 12. TCU and Arizona State. We've got Arizona State 2.5-point home favorites, 54.5 the total. Both of these teams off victory in tight games last week. Well, I guess TCU pulled away late, but that was a pretty close game most of the way against SMU. 35-24, the final score in that game. And Arizona State with a walk-off field goal to beat Baylor, 27-24 on the road in Waco. So both of these teams getting victories in their first Big 12 game of the season. So This obviously it becomes a big game. You know, you're 1-0. You want to give yourself the best chance to contend in this conference. One thing that I've noted with Arizona State is against the the better teams on their schedule, the offense hasn't been totally clicking this season from start to finish. I think it's had moments where it's looked great and then moments where they've looked a little bit in disarray, out of sync. I could say the same thing about Sam Levitt. He's been really good in certain moments and he's struggled, in other moments. TCU's defense. Now, North Carolina doesn't have a great offense, but I was impressed with it. And against SMU and Kevin Jennings, I actually was kind of impressed with TCU's defense. They struggled at times, but when that game was there to be won and taken in the fourth quarter, I thought that Horned Frogs defense really stepped up, at that part of the game. So this total's come down 56.5 down to 54.5. But and going into the season, I would have thought at 54.5, I'd be betting an over here. But I think TCU's defense could be a decent amount better, from what I've seen years past compared to so far this year. Not to mention Arizona State, like I said, they haven't been firing on all cylinders in these games, start to finish on offense. So I get why some people are interested a little bit, maybe in the under here in this game. Not a game at the moment that I have circled to bet. The total I'm neutral on. Sidewise, I lean ASU at home, though, as long as this stays below a field goal. I think for TCU, that was a revenge game for them against SMU last week at home. Now they got to go on the road, and face an Arizona State team that, in particular here in Tempe, since Kenny Dillingham arrived on the scene, this team's played very good football at home, and it wouldn't surprise me if they pull out the win. One thing that does concern me, though, is even though I'm leaning Arizona State, Levitt does have to play a little bit better because Josh Hoover has certainly played pretty solid at quarterback for TCU, and I think there's definitely room for improvement for Arizona State's offense. Now, of course, you see their former running back Cam Scadaboo playing the way he is for the New York Giants in the NFL this season. Obviously, they miss him to a certain degree, but it's not just that. The offense just been a little bit out of rhythm. I think they've struggled to find consistent receiving targets outside of the great Jordan Tyson on this Arizona State team. So that's all been things that I think they're working through. But, on this home field, laying less than a field goal, I still like the team. I still like the coach a lot, Kenny Dillingham, in fact. And there's no slam to Sonny Dykes. Sonny Dykes has done, a pretty solid job. But I still prefer Kenny Dillingham as far as the coaching battle. So it's ASU at this number if I'm betting it. C-Mac, what do you think? TCU, Arizona State.
Yeah, on the total here, what do we get? Because I think it's been both defenses have played better. Because I wanted to go through the pace of play. They're both pretty up there, though, right? Just this year.
TCU is nearly as fast as they were last year. And Arizona
not as
State
fast.
Modest.
But these are top 25. Just through the first 3 weeks, both of them, a little bit. And like you talked about, the offense just been a little bit off. I think both of these defenses are maybe a little bit better. But I think if the offenses click, this does go over. But, that's got to happen in this game. So maybe it's a little bit of a discount, this total. Yeah, this is a tough spot for TCU. A lot of hype. Hoover, looked very, very good. Big win versus SMU. What do you have? 4 or 5 touchdowns? You have all 5? I think he had all 5 against SMU this week. So, and they held on. SMU got the lead there, at the start of the fourth quarter. 2 touchdowns to show. By the way, one of my tough losses, the over on that game. I thought that was good. I thought SMU would get a late score. Did not. To bring that up. Always bringing up my shit losses. So
because those are the easy ones to remember. That's why. Yep.
Oh yeah, still thinking about it. Still thinking about the whole fucking game. But I think Arizona here. I think this is a spot to take them. I think they're ready Friday night. Give me Arizona State.
All right, Arizona State. C-Mac leaning in that direction as well. All right, Houston, Oregon State. On Friday night as well. We've got Houston 12.5-point road favorites, 48 being the total in this game. Very dominant showing from Houston last week against Colorado on a Friday night. They're once again playing on a Friday night for the second straight week, and 3-0 against the spread for Willie Fritz and this Houston Cougars team. Connor Wegman has been solid. He's been good. hasn't made too many mistakes either. Throwing the football, the Texas A&M transfer on the year. He's got 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 64% completions. He's been running the ball a little bit. Obviously, they've got Connors, the transfer from Rice. He's been running the football well. Dean Connors for this Houston team. I like the balance in the offense. They can throw, they do things like you can't ask for much better than 222 through the air, 209 on the ground for Houston in the win against Colorado last week. That's exactly what you want to see. They're playing well. There's this Houston 3-0 against the spread. Said coming into the year, I think this was going to be, a team that was going to make money for their backers, and they have clearly shown that so far this season with the wins against Stephen F. Austin, Rice, and Colorado. Now, there's tougher opponents to come for this Houston team down the road, but I don't know if Oregon State is one of those teams that is going to be much tougher for this Houston group, because Oregon State has just had a really dismal start to the year, losing to Fresno, blown out by Cal in their first game, losing to Fresno in a turnover-filled game, blown out by Texas Tech, although we now see Texas Tech's one of the best teams going right now. And Oregon last week, 41-7. They hung in there. It was only 21-7 at halftime, but they got shut out in the second half by that Oregon defense. More struggles from Malik Murphy, 5 for 18, 68 yards. Gabari Johnson ended up finishing that game at quarterback. Malik Murphy's been a big disappointment. They couldn't get the run game going. Obviously, the defense got sliced, and the defense has been bad, and they got worn down because the offense couldn't move the football in the second half against Oregon. So kind of feels like a bit of a leap of faith right now to bet Oregon. They have not been good. Houston's on a point spread, runaway right now. I got to admit, I'm leaning to laying it with Houston, and I normally respect Oregon State at in Corvallis there at Reser Stadium. That's often can be, and it is a Friday night game, but it's just how lit of an atmosphere is it going to be when the team's been putrid? They're 0-4 straight up, 0-3-1 against the spread. How great's the atmosphere going to be on a Friday night in Corvallis when the team's playing awful football? So I ain't stepping in front of Houston. I'm just telling you that. Houston or pass for me. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the biggest disappointment, the whole fucking team has been a disappointment for Oregon State. But Murphy, like you talked about,
special teams is terrible too. Let's not.
Oh yeah, all 3 phases for sure. He doesn't have anyone around. I'll give him that, receivers or anything, but I thought he'd be better. And their numbers are just awful. This offense just can't move the ball. They can't run the ball. And then when you look, the defensive numbers are awful. And it seems like Houston, this could just get in and get out, run the ball, have their good defense, just kind of keep Oregon State locked down. So, for more, it's like, can Oregon State get their team total here? They get to 20 points. If they do, maybe they cover. But that's just been the move for me to go to with this Houston defense. When I see all their bad numbers, in the 120s, 130s, in all these categories, and how good this Houston defense is, I think you just look to take Oregon State's team total under in this game.
And teams are running it right down Oregon State's throat too. So Houston's going to be able to keep moving it on the ground, keep the clock moving. Obviously churn out yards, keep Oregon State's limited offense off the field. If Houston doesn't turn it over, I think it's possible they could win by at least 2 touchdowns. So, but like I said, I'm high on Houston. I was very, very pro Houston coming into the year. They're 3-0 against the spread. They've done nothing to dispel that notion that it's a team that I like quite a bit. There's no reason for me to fade them right now. So yeah, Houston or pass for me on Friday night. All right, let's get to Saturday's action. We will begin with Notre Dame and Arkansas. Sorry, you got one before that. That's next. First, we'll start with Utah and West Virginia. Utah 10.5-point road favorites, 49.5 the total in this game. My first thought is, Utah, look, it's a bit of a wake-up call. Sometimes you need a splash of cold water on the face when you think you're good. And Utah got that Saturday afternoon at home against Texas Tech. I was very impressed with Texas Tech. Kyle Whittingham spoke volumes about how much he loved his football team in the trenches, along the line of scrimmage, the offensive line and the defensive line. Well, guess what happened Saturday? The offensive line lost the battle to Texas Tech. Throughout that game, the defensive line lost the battle throughout the game against Texas Tech. They didn't really get much of a pass rush going consistently. The run game, stopping the run was a bit of a concern. And more importantly, on the offensive line, didn't block well enough as far as that is concerned. They didn't block well enough as far as run blocking or pass protection. That is definitely something that I worry about, certainly for Utah moving forward. But I don't know if I'm going to worry about that offensive line here on the road in a bounce-back spot, an angry team against West Virginia. I feel this is a good spot for Utah to bounce back. I know you're laying a big number on the road, but and I haven't bet it yet, but as you can clearly see, it's either I lay it with Utah or I don't bet it. I don't trust West Virginia. I know they beat Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago, but I said going into that game, don't be surprised if Pittsburgh, falls asleep and plays a poor game. They're sometimes capable of doing that. I think when you look at this West Virginia team, I still don't think they're great defensively. I don't like Nico Marchiol. He is just way too erratic, way too inconsistent for me. 15 for 27, 126 through the air, and one interception against Kansas last week. And Kansas was ready to go. They had that tough loss to Missouri. They were off the bye week playing at home, and they laid it to West Virginia last week. So Utah's capable of winning this by margin. I'm not throwing them in the garbage can just because they lost at home to a really good, what looks like a really good Texas Tech team. I think we found that out. And credit to Texas Tech, too. They lost Baron Morton in that game due to injury. And in comes, obviously, Will Hammond to finish that game.
Looks like Joe Montana. They score all those points late.
Yeah, and look, he's played well in the past for Texas Tech. And you wonder now if, I don't think there's a controversy. Morton is still probably the guy, but he's good enough to really threaten Morton for that spot as the starter if Morton comes back and struggles, because I was impressed with what I saw from Will Hammond to just enter the game on the road, right in the middle of it against a really good team, and play the way he did. It was really impressive. I don't think West Virginia can hang in the trenches with this Utah team, and I think Rich Rod knows it. Rich Rod made sure to point out that it's going to take time, for this team, especially I remember Ohio was pushing this team around a few weeks ago in the trenches. Ohio, just a few weeks ago. So how are they going to handle Utah? I don't think it's going to go too well. I'm starting to see a sign this number might come down, because I'm starting to see it slip down to 10 in some spots. If I can get 10 or better, I'll lay it with Utah here. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, that was awful. They looked bad. The quarterback play was horrible for West Virginia. And we talked about the Kansas laid off. It had just been such a good matchup in years past. But it's back to Rich Rod here. It's going to take some time. I do like that they're here at home. I wish Utah played better or won that football game, because this might be bigger, and I'd probably be on West Virginia in this game. But now that didn't happen.
No.
So Dan Pierce just got to be better. He was pretty bad in that game. He had some bad interceptions there. Seemed like they just
thing with Dan Pierce, and I still like him. I really think he still can have a pretty good season. But one thing I will say of concern, he ripped apart every team he had played so far. But Wyoming issues, UCLA is not anywhere close to what they're really bad. This was the first really good team in defense he played, and he had a tough time. Let's call it like we see it. He had a real rough day. Devin.
He did.
So against the toughest foes in this conference, now maybe there's a little door open of doubt what we're going to get from Devin Dampier against the best defenses, best teams he plays. This ain't one of them, though, in my opinion. So I think he'll play.
I don't think it is, too. I got to give, though, a little tick here with West Virginia at home. Whether that's enough they could cover, I'm not so sure. So, as of now, I'm off.
All right, Notre Dame and Arkansas. We've got Notre Dame 5.5-point road favorites, 64 the total. Notre Dame defense still not very good. I mean, even though their offense obviously was tremendous, Purdue still has a lot of problems on defense. We've seen that. Credit, though, to C.J. Carr, Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price. The run game was just lethal. It was just up and down the field. They were carved up that Purdue run defense. Carr played a really good game, made the plays in the passing game when he had to. They were scoring at will. And Notre Dame with a much-needed victory after starting the season 0-2 to get that win against Purdue last week in blowout fashion. But this is not a good. So this is not an easy spot now for Notre Dame coming off that 56-30 victory, because now you got to go on the road, Fayetteville, an early start game at noon Eastern against another very dynamic and explosive offense with Arkansas. And Taylon Green's played very well so far this season. Not as good against Memphis. He did have 2 interceptions, in that game that proved to be costly. But and they lose that game to the Tigers 32-31 after having a pretty decent lead in that game. The defense continues to be a problem for Arkansas as well. They gave up 41 to Trinidad, Chambliss, and Ole Miss. They give up 31 points in the loss to Brendan Lewis and Memphis last week. They can't cover down the field. Their run defense has been spotty. So there's a lot of defensive issues with Arkansas, but you can turn around and say the same damn thing about Notre Dame. And Notre Dame did not solve their defensive issues against Purdue, in my opinion, because, Ryan Brown was moving the ball pretty well at times in that game. If he didn't turn it over as much, they probably could have scored more than the 30 points, that they got in that game. So, the Arkansas offense, it's been very good on the ground. They're averaging, 6.6 yards per carry, 227.8 per game on the ground. The run defense, the run defense has been better for Notre Dame. It's the pass defense that's been worse. But we have seen Taylon Green get a little bit more efficient throwing the ball, and Arkansas should be able at home here to score points, because you look at Notre Dame against Carson Beck, they gave up 27, they gave up 41 to Texas A&M, and Marcel Reed, they give up 30 to Purdue. There's still a lot of issues, a lot of problems with Notre Dame on defense. You could probably say the same thing about Arkansas. But this is one of those games where certainly I already bet it, the over 64 with the total here. I think it's a high-scoring game. I don't trust either of these defenses. And in a game like this where you don't trust either defense, if you're going to bet a side, I'd rather take the points than lay it with a bad. I don't lay points with bad defenses. And both of these teams have bad defenses. So if I had to bet a side, I would take Arkansas here, plus 5.5. I think they're in this game, and maybe even have a chance to win outright. Notre Dame, I am not ready to lay 5.5 with them in this spot. I know Arkansas is off that crushing loss to Memphis. It's more rumblings about Sam Pittman's job security are out there. But remember, Arkansas was moving the ball against Memphis. They got a couple of turnovers, really flipped the game in Memphis's favor. I don't trust this Notre Dame defense to get stops on the road. Don't really trust Arkansas's defense either, but I like over, especially in this game, 64. But if I'm betting a side, could only take the points here with the Razorbacks. What do you think here, C-Mac, Notre Dame, Arkansas?
Yeah, Arkansas, hats off to Memphis, which I had the over in Memphis. I thought the defense played better. They got some turnovers. Arkansas only 3 points in that whole second half, which was really, really big.
Memphis does have a better defense. It's worth noting. Their defense, Memphis, is better this year.
And they look better in the second half after kind of getting just their ass drilled there early. Green, the couple picks that he had, he's still problems there. One thing you got to like, which what I saw with Memphis, they just started running the ball. They're just running it down Arkansas's throat. I think they almost had 300 yards in that game. And then they had the long run, that touchdown, basically, to win it. So, yeah, Notre Dame, it was more of it. The defense is just not there right now. So they should have no problem scoring here on Arkansas. Even with this number, it's kind of like, how does it not go over? Yeah, we talk about basketball. It's a little different. I want a team that scores as a baby that can cover. In football, if you have a bad defense and you're laying points on the road, like, no way. That means shit's really you just got to outscore them. And look, they did that this week, but at home against Purdue when they needed. So, but I think this line is pretty sharp, though. Like, I was hoping for more than a touchdown at home here with Arkansas. We're not getting it. But that's the way I'd be here. Arkansas or nothing in this game.
Well, if you got Purdue early like I did, they didn't cover Notre Dame. That's part of it, too, why you're not getting a bargain to fade Notre Dame here. Because, I got 26.5 and won by the hook with Purdue last week.
It went down to 24.
It went down to 24 after that. But if you bet it late, if you bet Notre Dame late, you would have won, because it had closed around 24.5. But, I got on it early, and that got me, got me the win in the end. But still, I mean, they are. If you got Purdue early, that means Notre Dame has yet to cover a number this year, as far as the opening line is concerned. So, like I said, it's just, and the defense is to blame. This has been such a huge decline so far this season from the Notre Dame defense. And that's part of the reason why they've been struggling, especially against the number. So, yeah, I could only look at Arkansas here, taking points at home against a very leaky defense, even though Arkansas's defense is also very problematic. So, over, though, is my, as you can tell, over is my
bad. They're bad, Arkansas. I mean, the linebackers are like, all right, the secondary looks tough, and then they just ran it like I was talking about Memphis did, especially late.
All right, California and Boston College. We've got Boston College 6.5-point home favorites. The total here sitting at 51.5. Now, this is one of these West Coast teams going east for an afternoon game. It's 12:30 Pacific time that this game starts on Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. Boston College, so far this year, they are obviously coming off the Stanford loss a couple weeks ago, off a bye week as well, and 30-20 loss to Stanford. That was one of those games where you could tell they were mentally and physically all messed up from playing that game late night in Palo Alto. They played a sloppy game, turnovers. Dylan Lonergan made some mistakes in that game. They fumbled. Defense didn't look, as good as it's been in the past. They allowed a pedestrian Stanford team to roll up 30 points against them. But I think some of that was the scheduling spot. Like I said, it's a team going all the way out to the West Coast that's all of a sudden having to play, 10:30 p.m. Eastern time, real late for an East Coast team playing that late. Now they're off that loss and the bye. From a spot perspective, it definitely is a clear-cut Boston College spot here in this game, no question. A very strong spot. But what you have to ask yourself, though, is do you want to lay 6.5 with this team? Because, as I said, their schedule, they've lost to the two FBS teams they've played, Michigan State and Stanford, and struggled defensively in both games against Aiden Childs of Michigan State and then again against Stanford. And the only team they've beaten was that Fordham victory, 66-10. So how good is Boston College? That you have to ask yourself. Not to mention, I like Cal. Now, I don't know what happened to them last week. It was a coming back down to earth for the young freshman from Hawaii. Jaron Kiave Sagapolutele did not have a very good game. 17 for 38, 2 interceptions. Was not sharp. It was probably his worst game of the year. They could not run the football at all against San Diego State. That was a bit surprising. 65 rushing yards for the game for Cal. Justin Wilcox called his team out, too. Check out his press conference after the loss to San Diego State, 34-0. He was not happy. So I would expect California to play with some urgency here, but the spot's not great. Flying west to east. BC off a loss and a bye. A good spot for them. Tough game. It really is. But I don't think I want to fade. I would need 7 or better to get involved with Cal. I think at the current number, it's a stay off for me. It is that strong of a spot for BC. The problem is I don't know how fucking good they are. They've lost to the two teams that are worth a shit, Michigan State and Stanford. How good is BC? We'll see. What do you think, C-Mac? Cal, Boston College?
Yeah, I think they're pretty average. I mean, yeah, the Michigan State game could have went either way. That crazy game. And, yeah, just go to Stanford, get their ass kicked. In a strange game. I mean, this one, that late-night game, I mean, San Diego State really didn't move the ball. They did enough, but they had the fumble touchdown and the pick six.
Yep.
I think that was all in the third quarter.
2 defensive touchdowns, yes. Yep.
2 defensive touchdowns, which were big. I just think that Cal played so bad a little bit. And the defense, not that it got gashed, because I like this defense, okay, and I want to back them more at home. I can't do it here, even with how bad they played. I could see them keeping this game close. It's just Boston College, tricky place to play. You talk about off the bye. And it shows with this number a little bit that, I think they may be the play here. It's just, do you want to lay almost the touchdown in this game? So, as of now, I don't.
All right, next up as we continue along, Virginia Tech and NC State. We've got NC State 10.5-point home favorites, 57.5 the total here in this game. Obviously, it's been a very tumultuous season here for the Virginia Tech Hokies. There's been no mistaking that. Their coach ends up getting fired, Brent Pry. Philip Montgomery, who is the offensive coordinator and, of course, has head coaching experience. We remember him head coach at Tulsa, of course, back in the day. But Philip Montgomery takes over as the interim head coach. So he will not only remain OC and call the plays, but he'll take over as the interim head coach for presumably the rest of the season. They're not going to make their decision as to who they're going to hire permanently as head coach probably until the end of the regular season. But when you look at Virginia Tech, does the coaching change rally the troops? That's always what you have to ask yourself. And it's really a case-by-case basis. I don't think it's ever a scenario where you just, blanket statement it and say, first game after a coaching change, they're going to show up here in this game. Well, actually, they did play last Saturday. First game after the firing of Brent Pry. It was against Wofford. They won 38-6, but they didn't cover. And they're still 0-for on the season against the spread, Virginia Tech. Not only the 1-3 straight up, but 0-4 against the spread. And again, Wofford is not really a litmus test of how, if things are turned around. Defense is still, I don't think I trust them very much. The games, at least before Brent Pry got shown the door, were pretty ugly. Vanderbilt scores 44. Old Dominion with Colton Joseph scores 45 against them. And this is a pretty good NC State offense. Now, NC State has a pretty bad defense. They don't have much of a defense, NC State. But C.J. Bailey and company can move the football. I think they're really good on that side of the ball. The number's gone up, 8.5 all the way up to 10.5. So people think Virginia Tech, there's going to be no coach bump here. They're that bad. They're capable of getting blown out. And again, they couldn't cover against Wofford last week. They have failed to cover a point spread so far this season. NC State coming off that loss to Duke 45-33. Again, I thought C.J. Bailey played pretty well. Now, he did have 3 interceptions. That was problematic. But they were moving the ball. And if not for those interceptions, they probably would have scored more points. They also had a lost fumble. So all of the fucking turnover luck was against NC State in that game. They fumbled it twice, and then there were 3 interceptions from C.J. Bailey in that game, kind of masking the fact that they still managed to rack up over 500 yards against Duke. Problem is the turnovers kept more points from going on the board than it would have been. They could add more points if not for the turnovers. So I like this over. I think it gets there. NC State, to me, is a dead nuts over team until proven otherwise. I know with drones, we've got our issues, right? The offense does not look great at all at times for Virginia Tech. The South Carolina game, the Vanderbilt game, Old Dominion, they didn't really get going until they were already way behind. But, there's real problems with NC State's defense. So, gosh, if Kyron Drones can't get something going leading this offense here in this game, then you might as well just make the change at quarterback and try the backup, because if he can't move the football here against NC State's defense, then you might as well cut bait and go to the backup quarterback the rest of the way. So I think the over, I have some interest in that. Could there be a step up effort here? Maybe for Montgomery as the interim coach, but I haven't seen enough in Virginia Tech to want to go to the window. C-Mac, what do you think here? Virginia Tech, NC State.
You don't know, like you talked about, it's case by case, but I don't see it.
No.
It's like, I think this program's in the shitter, Virginia Tech. I think the offense is just awful. They might be able to score some here. I think you just looked at NC State. Their team total is going to be just under 34, right? I'm guessing 33.5.
That's a great point. As I've often said, a lot of times with the bigger favorites, especially when I don't trust their defense, I would rather total. I would rather have the team total over. And yes, the team total's 34.5 right now for NC State. You get it below that key number of 35. I like that. I think that's a good route to go.
Yeah, because I think their offense can move. And one thing though, with those turnovers were awful, and it has been a little bit in that game. That was Duke's problem.
Yeah,
Duke took care of the ball this week.
Turnover battle for a change after losing it to Tulane and Illinois, the 2 previous games. Yep.
And because NC State was just going up and down. I like it, Andrew G. CJ baby giraffe. He can look like that at times. But I think they move the ball here, Virginia Tech. And drones, this offense isn't very good. And I saw enough. The defense, I don't think, is very good. The 45-44 to Vandy. I don't know if NC State's going to hang 45. I think they could get over the 35. I'd be on their team total.
All right, Indiana, Iowa. As we head to the Big Ten, we've got Indiana 7.5 point road favorites. Actually, it's more 7.5 pretty much across the board here. 48.5 the total here in this game. This is going to surprise some people a little bit here. I kind of like the over in this game, 48.5. Yeah, Iowa over. Crazy, right? Crazy, but I don't know.
Well, that defense, that was like it got back to normal in the second half.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was shocked. I was like, what the fuck is going on here?
T-Mac, like you're letting Rutgers go up and down
Kaliak-Manis
against you.
Just slinging it.
Play Indiana this week for Mendoza, and Indiana just hung a 70 spot last week against Illinois. Now you got to deal with them, and you're struggling to get stops, and you're letting Rutgers just move the football at will, at least for a good chunk of that game against you. Yeah, all of a sudden, I do have concerns about the Iowa defense here going into this game against Indiana on Saturday. And while I mentioned the concerns about the Iowa defense, I'm starting to really like the improvements we're seeing from the offense, and in particular, Mark Gronowski. I was very adamant about it coming into this season that I thought Gronowski had the chance to be the best quarterback that the Iowa Hawkeyes have had in a decade, at least. I thought he's better than fucking Spencer Petras. Not that that's a high bar. Better than, Stratton, when he was in there at quarterback. Better than Nate Stanley. Go on down the list. All these freaking mediocre ham and egger quarterbacks that Iowa's had for the last 10 years. I said, Mark Gronowski's got the chance to be better than all those guys. And yeah, it was a slow start. Didn't look great against Iowa State when they lost to the Cyclones. Looked a lot better last week, but it was against UMass. But to go on the road, and say Rutgers is not a great defense this year, in my opinion, but still to go on the road,
they're not. Yeah,
points on the road on a Friday night. That's still a big step to me for Gronowski. Played a really efficient game in the passing game. He used his legs with 55 rushing yards with 3 rushing touchdowns. It was his best game. He's getting better by the week. You can clearly see that. And I think they can at home here in a good environment in Iowa City here, Kinnick Stadium. Indiana's defense looks really good. We saw that obviously last week in the blowout against Illinois in that not quite 70 points, but almost 63-10 victory over Illinois. It was something to behold. Fernando Mendoza, it was phenomenal. He only had 2 incomplete passes, 5 touchdowns, more touchdown passes than incomplete passes. He had 5 touchdown passes. He had 2 incomplete passes. Fernando Mendoza.
Unbelievable. You got to give it yeah.
Yeah, we thought Illinois. Well, we thought that was going to be a competitive game because Illinois had looked pretty solid, and there's Indiana just beating the living shit out of them.
It was for about 8 fucking minutes, and then it was not. Yeah,
the roof caved. Looked like Indiana last year, just rolling it up and blowing teams out left and right. That's a solid Illinois team. I don't want to say great Illinois team. That's a solid Illinois team, and they took a shit kicking at the hands of Indiana. So I'll be damned if I'm betting against Indiana. Now, do I love the spot coming off a huge blowout home win, going on the road, tricky game? I think Iowa's okay, good, not great. Certainly Indiana could not run away, but win by double digits. They're good enough to do that, but the spot's tricky. You're going on the road. Iowa can be a pain in the neck playing them in Iowa City. Their offense with Gronowski's improving. I do worry about that Iowa defense, though. Like with Kaliak-Manis and Rutgers in the first quarter and into the second quarter even, just going up and down the way they did, that does bother me. So I think there's value in the over. I really do. At 48.5. I think it's a game that can get up and over the total. From a side perspective, another thing to factor in, too, is they played the Friday night last week in New Jersey. This Iowa team, they got the extra day of prep for this game against Indiana. So will it help Kirk Ferentz and the coaching staff? We'll see. Over is what I'm most interested in here. I think from a spot perspective, taking Iowa 7.5, I can see it, but I like Cignetti a lot. I like what he's done at Indiana quite a bit. And one thing we know about Cignetti last season and what we saw obviously against Illinois, even though this is on the road, not at home, he is not scared to run up that score. And he wants to run up the score, I think, because he wants his team in the playoff, and he feels that running up the margin against any team that he's capable of doing it against, he will do it. He will take that opportunity to run it up. So I'm not stepping in front of this Indiana team, but it is a little bit of a tricky spot going to Iowa. I like over. That's the bet for me. C-Mac, what do you think here? Indiana, Iowa.
I think Indiana might win this game, but I don't know if you want to go run and lay 7.5 spot. I think this is tough. I just think it's the first road game with Mendoza.
That is true. They have not
and he looks
yet this year, Indiana.
They have it.
Very important point to make.
He's looked so good. You talked about this last game. It's unreal. I think everyone wants Indiana here. Come on, right, Pabano? Isn't the world going to be on Indiana in this game? I mean, they just won 63-10. Does anybody want Iowa and that defense that just got shitted on, especially the first half? I think this is Iowa. Their offense still is not very good. I don't give a shit. I think Rutgers' defense is pretty bad, but I think this is too many points. I think this is going to be just a little bit of a dogfight. Give me the 7.5 there.
You are selling high with Indiana. They can't play much better than they did last week, and now they're.
They could. I mean, they could win this game. So I want to see it on the road. Signetti. Maybe this team's just as good. I don't. This is early. This is what we do every year after these. That was the blowout wins
against Illinois, where I also start thinking maybe they're even a little bit better than last year.
Maybe they are. Yeah, maybe they are. I mean, and on the road, they were pretty good, at least in Big Ten play, last year.
Yeah, no doubt. Like I said, that was the kind of win where it's like, whoa, this team, it might be at the very least as good as last year, maybe even better. That's how impressive it was to me. So we'll see if they can
damn impressive
momentum here to this game with Indiana and Iowa, or this game here against Iowa on Saturday. All right, next up, we've got Louisville, Pittsburgh. Louisville, 3-point road favorites, 56 the total in this game. I think I like Louisville here. I don't trust Pitt. I don't trust their defense. They couldn't get a stop against, a kind of a floundering West Virginia offense a couple weeks ago in the backyard brawl when they needed it. That's not a good sign. Louisville's done nothing wrong this year. In fact, the way James Madison pulled away and beat Liberty by double digits, a few on Saturday, and Louisville ended up winning against James Madison by double digits. Jeff Brom's team hasn't done anything wrong so far this year. They've looked. Some Miller Moss has looked solid in the passing game here for this Louisville team this year. I think the defense has been, pretty solid, better than I expected from Louisville, because they lost a lot on the defense. Last year's Louisville defense was pretty good. They lost a lot from that group, but they have managed to play pretty solid on that side of the football. This number is right around that 3 mark. I flat out think Louisville's the better football team. So I'm probably going to end up on Louisville here now, especially if it's 3 or better in this game against Pitt. Holstein can be great sometimes, and then there's times where he's a little off and he's throwing picks and turning it over. It's the whole gamut sometimes from him at the quarterback spot. So to me, I like Louisville here. I think they're the better team, and I'll probably take my chances with Jeff Brom over Narduzzi as well. C-Mac, what do you think? Louisville, Pitt?
Yeah, I think the line's right in this game here a little bit. I think Louisville a little bit of the better team, but I don't know if I want them here. This has been the traditional struggle with these two teams. Like Louisville at home usually takes care of business. They go to Pittsburgh. Games are tight, or Pittsburgh wins. I just don't know how good this Pittsburgh team is. We talked about the West Virginia game where 7 and they lose outright. They have extra week here, right? They did not play last week, right? Yep.
Pitt did Pitt have a bye? Yes, they did. They haven't played since
they did have a bye.
It is a bye for Pitt, so that is a plus.
Yeah, I think they're going to be up for this game after loss. Just watch out. I think here it's Louisville. I think this could be a good game. Tight.
Yeah, no doubt.
Maybe it gets over. We got a high total.
Pitt plays, we know with Cade Bell, 2 years now, he's been the OC. They'll play with pace. There's no doubt. And when you look at Louisville, 2 of their 3 games have gone over. The only one that didn't was James Madison, but James Madison's a great defense. James Madison plays slow, and that's a big reason.
Slow. That was tight, too, for a good amount of that game. Yeah.
I'm with you on the total for sure. Over or nothing. I think it could be an over that game, Louisville and Pittsburgh. All right, Duke and Syracuse. We've got Duke 5-point road favorites. The total here sitting at 59.5, 60.5 across the board in this one. Give Syracuse all the credit. Great win last week against struggling Clemson. Obviously, a Clemson team that is currently issues all over the place, in the trenches. Defense got carved up. Cade Klubnik erratic once again. But Syracuse, obviously, a very impressive win, but it came at a cost, a terrible cost. Steve Angeli, the quarterback for Syracuse, who was really starting to put some good football together. The way they led the comeback for them against UConn, the way he played even in a loss against Tennessee, they moved the football and obviously played very well in the first part of that game against Clemson. And then to see his season come to an end due to injury, that's a shame. And it's unfortunate for Fran Brown's team, who have, certainly started better than I thought. I mean, I was not expecting Syracuse necessarily to be 3-1 to begin the season, including an outright win as 17.5-point dogs at Clemson. But clearly it's going to be a work in progress, I believe, for Ricky Collins, who took over at quarterback, 3 for 8, 34 yards. It looked like they were kind of nursing that game home to the finish line for Syracuse last week. Now, he is going to obviously get a full week of reps, to get comfortable with the first team offense here, and he gets to play at home. And it's a Duke defense that has not played great, even in their win against NC State. If NC State doesn't have 3 interceptions and a fumble, they already had 500 yards of offense, NC State, without the turnovers. If they don't turn it over, they probably get into the 40s maybe against that Duke defense. So it's certainly a spot where, yes, Angeli's out. Yes, it's a big loss for Syracuse, but Fran Brown's going to get a week to coach up Ricky Collins here for a home game against a defense that's had some issues. We'll see if he's ready to handle it. The problem is Syracuse's defense played pretty well, believe it or not. I was impressed with how they played against Clemson. But Duke's offense, I think, when they finally stopped turning it over last week, we see Duke's offense can be pretty good with Darian Mensah. That was the issue against Tulane and Illinois, the 2 previous games for Duke. They moved the ball. Offense moved the ball, but they just killed themselves with turnovers in both of those
Fumble. Yeah, exactly. Fumbling all over
moving the football. So, yeah, I'm kind of with Robert Carlson in the chat here. Even though it's a downgrade at quarterback from Steve Angeli to Ricky Collins, you have to factor in he's getting to play at home. You have to factor in he's playing against a defense that has had trouble getting stops, that it's a spot where he can step in there and probably play well for one game, Ricky Collins, for Syracuse at quarterback. And I think Duke gets their points as well. So I like over in this not Carrier Dome, but you get my point. In the Dome there in Syracuse, I think it's a high-scoring game. Sidewise, I'd lean Duke because, I don't know, just because, Ricky Collins is a bit of an unknown. Duke finally got the win. Duke stopped turning the ball over. They won, and they won by double digits. And I don't know if I love the spot for Syracuse. Coming off a huge win at Clemson. Now you're going to your backup quarterback. I think I lean Duke laying the 5 here, but I'm on the over for sure. I like the over even more in this game. C-Mac, how about you? Duke, Syracuse.
It's like, how is there not points in this game? This is one thing, though, with Duke. I don't know how good the defense really is. So to me, even with this spot, I can't lay points with him, even with the backcourt. Ricky Collins, though, I mean, this guy was highly recruited, right? LSU left there, didn't he?
Absolutely. Yeah, he was a recruit.
I think he's going to be able to. I think he's going to be fine here in this game. It's just after the big win. I think it's Syracuse here at home, even with Collins. He could make some big mistakes that could cost him. You were talking about in this game, but spot's strange. Early game points, and I think Syracuse.
All right, still leaning into the Q's here. Sometimes look that. Don't forget about the theory here. We use it sometimes in NBA and other sports. Star player out in the first game without him, team steps up. Could that be the case here with Ricky Collins? His first start at quarterback after Angeli goes down for the season. Syracuse with a rise-up effort. We'll see.
Duke should be able to score, like he's talking. But I have problems with this defense.
Yeah.
So far,
it's been disappointing. I'm sure Manny Diaz is disappointed with this defense. I'm sure he wasn't expecting them to play like this. Nobody was. We thought Duke had a pretty solid defense coming into the year, and it just has not played out that way so far. All right, Georgia Tech and Wake Forest. We've got Georgia Tech 14.5-point road favorites, 53 being the total here in this one. I think when you look at this particular matchup here, we like Georgia Tech a lot. We don't always like them when they're laying bigger points, Georgia Tech, and lo and behold, we saw it on display against Temple. Now, very late backdoor touchdown right at the end for Temple to get the point spread.
Oh, yeah.
But still, that shows you why it's a risk at times to lay a number like this, especially with Georgia Tech when they're going to be so run heavy. They're not going to go at a blazing fast pace on offense, and it can leave the door wide open, and it certainly was for the Temple Owls, and to get that late touchdown to get inside the number. Kind of a similar thing here. Here they are now laying 14.5 against a Wake Forest team that, has not been good. They haven't. They lost to, or they barely beat Kennesaw State as an 18-point favorite. They play Western Carolina. Doesn't say much about how good they are. And then NC State, 34-24, even after a really strong start for Robbie Ashford and the Demon Deacons. And yet they couldn't get stops in the second half. NC State gets their offense going. Wake Forest can't, trade points for 4 quarters. 2 interceptions again from Ashford, even though he played a little bit better efficiency in the passing game. Still 2 critical, terrible interceptions that really hurt their chances against NC State in that game that lost 34-24. We'll see if Wake can bounce back here in this game. Now, it is for Wake Forest off a bye for them. They have not played since that Thursday night game against NC State 2 weeks ago. So this is a lot of prep time that Wake Forest has for Georgia Tech for this game. The question you have to ask yourself is the first thing you got to look at when you handicap this game. How is the run defense going to hold up for Wake Forest in this game? When you look at their numbers so far this year against the run, they're middle of the pack, 132.3 rushing yards per game allowed, 3.3 yards per. The yards per carry numbers aren't that bad for the Wake defense. 43rd, 3.3 rushing yards per game. So, like I said, the run defensive numbers aren't that bad. Robbie Ashford is an erratic passer. He was better with his, completion percentage against NC State.
Yeah. He looked like dog shit in the second half. Back to the norm.
They made the adjustments, and then, he ended up getting shut down. Georgia Tech played at Wake 2 years ago, beat them 30-16 in that game. This is one where, with the total, I kind of lean under because Wake's not playing nearly as fast as they did under Dave Clawson. They're not playing at that breakneck speed and tempo that they did under Dave Clawson so far for Jake Dickert. They are slowing it down a bit. Georgia Tech's going to be methodical. So this could be an under type of game. It's a really good spot for Wake. Lots of time off the bye, off the NC State loss. I don't generally love Georgia Tech at this number, so I'm not going to take Georgia Tech. I just don't know if I trust Wake enough.
I know. I was looking at this.
C-Mac, how about you?
I know. I was having this because I think Georgia Tech wins this game. Just do the cover here. I can see them winning by 17. I can see them winning by 7, 10. It just seems like it's a game to get in and get out. They're going to be able to run the ball. I don't have enough confidence in Wake. I don't know if their defense and then their offense, I just don't trust Ashford.
Wake first half, maybe.
Even with the bye.
If you bet Wake first half, you were a winner.
They were good in that game, yeah. I mean, maybe that continues. I don't know. Maybe it becomes a pattern. I mean, it was just the NC State game. It was the whole different team. I was like, is this the same football teams? That happens in college football. Fuck, it happens in the NFL too. But you're like, is these the same teams playing here? We saw some of that yesterday in the NFL. Wild shit. But yeah, this is just too tricky. Georgia Tech as a favorite. No. Give me them away to their dog, or maybe a small favorite. So as of now, I'm off. This could be dangerous game here.
All right, UCLA and Northwestern. We've got Northwestern 6.5-point home favorites. The total here sitting at 45.5, pretty much across the board. This is, again, a situation where for UCLA, is there going to be a little bit of a pulse shown for the Bruins here playing this game, obviously following the firing of Deshaun Foster as head coach? That's not the that can't be the only reason to bet UCLA if you like UCLA here, but it is something you have to factor in. I don't know if I can lay 6.5 with Northwestern. Here's the thing, though: UCLA making the long road trip to Evanston for this game. Northwestern against Oregon, 34-14 loss for them in their last game. Both of these teams are off a bye week. Neither one played last week, so no real advantage there. UCLA 0-3 straight up, 0-3 against the spread. But when you look at these games here, as far as the point spread's concerned, they have been, decidedly beaten by the point spread in these games, which means the betting markets have been slow like crazy to react to how bad things have gotten for this program here at UCLA. And it's really everything. I don't think there's anything UCLA is doing very well right now. Nico Iamaleava is not having a great year as far as his overall numbers is concerned. Everything's dink and dunk. There's been really no downfield vertical passing game to speak of for Iamaleava here this season with UCLA. The run game has been non-existent at times for UCLA on the season. They're struggling, 105th in the country and 122 rushing yards per game so far this year. And then, of course, you flip it around to the UCLA defense. They've been a train wreck. They're giving up 6.6 yards per play, 125th in the country. Run defense is abominable, how bad it is. 244 per game on the ground given up by UCLA, 5.5 yards per carry. Teams are running the football down the throat here of this UCLA team. I think it's actually worse for them than it is for Northwestern. And they're going on the road for a game that's going to start at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. local time on Saturday afternoon. If you made me choose, I would lay it with Northwestern before I take UCLA. I'll say this about Northwestern. They hung in there against Oregon before the bye. Oregon's pretty good, and they hung in there. The defense, the offense is a real problem. Preston Stone is just, he's not good. He stinks. He's bad. We're probably not going to get the Preston Stone of the early part of his tenure at SMU ever again. I thought maybe going to Northwestern, we would start to see the early in his career version of Preston Stone. We haven't seen it. He's been pretty horrific for Northwestern so far this year. The numbers don't lie. I mean, 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, not even completing 60% of his passes. It has not been a good season for him. That being said, Northwestern should have success running the football here in this game because UCLA has been abysmal stopping the run. And Northwestern's been trying to be an offense that leans on the ground game to help out a struggling Preston Stone. Maybe this is the week they get the run game going because, they're averaging at 178 per game on the ground. That's 59th, middle of the pack. They're actually averaging 5.1 yards per carry on the ground, Northwestern, offensively, 38th. And with the way this UCLA defense can't stop anything right now, if they can get the run game going even just a little bit to take some pressure off Preston Stone, make life just a little bit easier on him, if they can get that run game going, like I said here for Northwestern, they have a chance here to maybe win by a touchdown. In a game I don't love, these are two programs kind of in disarray and teams that have been struggling. But I think at home, UCLA having to make the long flight, a defense for UCLA, you could argue maybe even worse than Northwestern. I'm not convinced the coaching change does anything to, boost morale or, give them a pick-me-up of any kind. So I probably don't have the stomach to lay 6.5 with Northwestern, but that's my preference. That's absolutely my preference. I would lay it with Northwestern before I take UCLA right now. CMAC, what do you think here? UCLA, Northwestern.
Okay, there we go. Just nothing. I can't. No way. I bet this game. I guess, yeah. Northwestern, I just don't want to lay a touchdown with this team, the way they turn the ball over. I think they have their defense a little bit better right now, than UCLA. This one's ugly. This one's ugly. I don't think the coaching change doesn't do anything.
I agree.
No offense to UCLA until they get somebody in there,
Yeah, there's a lot of there's John Gruden rumors that he might go to LA and coach UC. I don't know about that.
That's nuts. Dude, Gruden is nuts. Yeah. This guy's always in everywhere.
Yeah. I think he's going to end up coaching somewhere in
He's
college.
Coaching. He can't help it.
Yeah. But like I said, I don't know if it's going to be UCLA. That is for sure. And by the way, Tim Skipper is the interim head coach. And we know how well that's another thing, too. Tim Skipper is the interim coach. And we know how well things went at Fresno when he was there. Not very well is my point. So, like I said, yeah, I lean Northwestern there. I probably don't bet it, though. All right, Rutgers and Minnesota. We got Minnesota 5-point home favorites, 51 being the total in this game. I took over in this game, 50.5. It's just, to me, Rutgers, I'm betting overs with them every week until they prove they can defend, and their offense is pretty solid right now with Kaliak-Manis. I like the angle of him going back to Minnesota, the place he started his college football career. Revenge game for the Greek Stallion. Ethan Kaliak-Manis here in this game. So, he'll be revved up to play against his former team. We'll see if he's able to put a good performance together. Minnesota, it's been some good, some bad from the offense. Obviously, we like Darius Taylor, the running back, but, for Drake Lindsey, I think there's something there with Drake Lindsey. I do think long term, he's got the chance to be, I think, more of a explosive player at the quarterback spot than, say, Tanner Morgan and some of these quarterbacks we've seen in the past from Minnesota. But obviously, it was a tough spot for them against Cal. A couple weeks ago, we mentioned how it was the same damn thing happened with both Boston College and Minnesota. They went out on the West Coast. They played a team, in a very late game, and you could tell that they were just discombobulated. That's what it looked like to me watching Minnesota against Cal in that loss to the Golden Bears. So again, we'll have to wait and see if the Golden Bears can Golden Gophers, I should say, can bounce. They lost to the Golden Bears. The Golden Gophers can bounce back from that here in this game. This is a game where I think I always like Rutgers taking points, not laying points. I like what I've seen from the offense here. Now, they're coming off that 38-28 loss against Iowa at home. But when you look at Minnesota, they played Buffalo. They didn't cover as home favorites in that game. I was on Buffalo, plus the points at Minnesota. They blew out Northwestern State. That doesn't say much. And then they're off the Cal game last week. Now, it is a bye week. That's a plus for P.J. Fleck in Minnesota. They didn't play last week. Like I said, though, the Rutgers defense has had problems, but their offense is pretty solid. 4-0 to the over this year. I think we see this game get up and over the total. The one thing, too, is Minnie wants to run the football. No question about that. And one thing about Rutgers is you start to see those run defense numbers. Ooh, not what you want to see. 151.5 per game allowed on the ground. That's 78th in the country. 5.1 rushing or yards per carry allowed, and that is 120th in the country. So there's been issues with the run defense for Rutgers, and the run game for Minnesota can open things up for Drake Lindsey in the passing game down the field. So I like this over. Again, Rutgers is not 4-0 to the over by accident. Okay, their defense is nowhere near what it's been at times in the past.
They were dead over last year, the last 6 games or so.
Yeah. And I think Minnesota is going to have that's probably why I'm going to ultimately, I lean Rutgers plus the points, but I feel like if you like Rutgers, you may want to prefer to take the team total over. If you're betting on because that's what you're betting on. If you like Rutgers in this game, you're betting on the offense. You're certainly not betting on the defense because the defense just hasn't been very good. But I think Kaliak-Manis going back to Minnesota, I like that angle. I think he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. He's going to look to play well. And he actually has played okay for Rutgers here this year. And so I think they can move it a little bit, score points. And I think Minnesota can just line it up, run the football down Rutgers' throat. They've had issues stopping the run. And I think it equates to this game going over the total. Lean Rutgers, but I like the total. I prefer that. C-Mac, what do you think here? Rutgers, Minnesota.
Yeah, one thing with Rutgers, which I saw in the Cal game, even though the spot we talked about, was they were able to throw it on Minnesota. They didn't really run the ball. I mean, they tried. I think they had 24 carries for 60 yards. And Rutgers all of a sudden just throwing the ball like crazy. So maybe they can have some success. The spot here, though, just screams Minnesota. Here's maybe Minnesota first half that after the loss on the bye back here at home that they play well. And I think they have the better defense. Like you mentioned, they could just run the ball here, keep the clock ticking. That's the only thing about the over. But you already brought it up too. I mean, these Rutgers games is like just going over, lying over. You know, no totals in the way in this game. So yeah, I might be off there, but I think this is a Minnesota type spot. Even though I don't love laying points with them.
Yeah, and like I said, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. But like I said, with this the offense has been solid. It's been defense that's been a concern, and that's why I think Minnesota definitely has a good day offensively. I think Rutgers also puts up enough points, and we see it go over the total. All right, you know what? I mentioned leaning Rutgers, and I still do. I don't love laying 5 with Minnesota, but it is a pretty strong spot for Minnesota. Off a bye and a loss. The kind of spot that might keep me off taking Rutgers. All right, Utah State and Vanderbilt. We've got Vanderbilt 22.5-point home favorites, 59.5 the total in this game. Utah State, they're 4-0 against the spread. Okay, they had a very impressive win against Air Force. A&M 33.5-point dogs. They scored 22 points. They lost 44-22. Their defense struggled. They moved the football against A&M. And obviously they won and covered against UTEP first game of the year. Bronco Mendenhall, man, he's done flying way under the radar. He's quietly done a nice job early in the season here, taking over this Utah State program. Bryson Barnes, the Utah transfer at quarterback's been efficient so far this year for his team at the quarterback spot. Flawless, no mistakes, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, 63.8% completions for Utah State. They've been solid offensively. I think what's been surprising is defensively, they've been maybe a little bit better than people thought coming into this season as well. There's still a ways to go because it was a horrific defense last year, but they've certainly come and made improvements on that side of the football. That'll be put to the test here against Vanderbilt because this offense is humming right now with Diego Pavia. We're seeing the points they're putting up every week, the Virginia Tech game, South Carolina game, obviously last week against Georgia State, certainly a spot where the Vanderbilt offense had their way, did whatever they wanted. Just they can run, they can throw. The O-line is probably the best O-line Clark Lee has had here at Vanderbilt. And they've been ripping off big plays and explosive plays. So even though they don't play at a fast pace, their efficiency and their offense has been humming so strong that some of these games go over the total. And that's kind of where I'm at here in this game. I think I would lean over this 59.5. We saw 44-22 with Texas A&M and Utah State, 66 points in that game just a couple of weeks ago. I think this game could be an over. Be careful with Vanderbilt, though, in this spot. Talk about how, often as bigger favorites, we don't love them. Last week was an exception because they had an axe to grind with Georgia State. Georgia State beat Vanderbilt last year, and Vanderbilt clearly didn't forget about it because they were focused. Georgia State had Vanderbilt's full attention, and Vanderbilt just beat the living hell out of them, 70-21. This could be the potential. I don't want to say flat spot, but after the beat, they clearly wanted to get back at Georgia State.
Beat the shit out of Georgia State.
Now you're playing another non-conference game, one that you don't have a history with. And next week you get into
who's on deck?
Play and who's on deck. Yeah, at Alabama. You're going to Tuscaloosa against the team you upset last year in SEC play. So this is not a great Vanderbilt spot. And there's been enough things to like about Utah State and how feisty they've been. Defense has been at least a little bit better. The offense has been pretty solid with Barnes. There's things there when you really do your autopsy over this football game that indicate Utah State plus the points might be a decent way to go here in this game, in this spot. Remember, they lost by 22 against A&M, 44-22. They covered the number in defeat in that game. So wouldn't shock me if Utah State plus the points ends up covering the number here, Utah State in this spot. I like the over, but be careful with laying it with Vanderbilt in this spot because I definitely lean to the dog a little bit. And I love Vandy and I love Bavia, and Clark Lee's done a great job, but this definitely feels like a spot where I would not be surprised in the slightest if Utah State gets inside the number. So I lean that way. I like the over. CMAC, Utah State, Vanderbilt.
Yeah, this could be like the late touchdown. I mean, they got that against A&M in that game, if I remember. They got a late touchdown to cover the number there. Yeah, things are. You know what the best thing is? This is just a step up for them, as we saw with A&M. They haven't turned the ball over too much. Barnes, but I don't trust him, but he's done good enough this year. And you know what? I can't take this either. I mean, both these teams I want to bet on. Like Utah State's been covered. They've started covering the last year. They've been covering machine. And Vandy, we talked about last week, just Georgia State, one of the worst defenses out there right now, by the way. Georgia State, tough. Yeah. Man, they're really, really
Utah
bad.
State is better than Georgia State. I don't think we're not breaking any news.
And it shows here, a little bit with this number. So, yeah, I just can't bet this, And then with Bama on deck, it's off. Watch out here.
All right, San Jose State and Stanford. We got a nice little Bay Area non-conference battle here. San Jose State and Stanford. Stanford 2.5-point home favorites, 49.5 the total in this game. I hate to be on the over express again here, but kind of lean that way. I mean, we saw Stanford. I thought one of the great bets last week, and I probably should have made it a best bet. I didn't, but I did like it. I did bet it. Stanford, Virginia over. Should have gone heavier on that. Like I said, Virginia's kind of an over team. We like Chandler Morris, the quarterback, Jamari Taylor at running back. They can run, they can throw. Figured they were going to get their points against that Stanford defense. But slowly but surely, Frank Reich and has got that Stanford offense kind of pointed in the upward direction, too. They're starting to play a little bit better, running the football a little bit more. Ben Gulbranson's been, solid. He's still not going to ever wow you at the quarterback spot. But there's no doubt there's been improvement in the Stanford offense the last couple of weeks. Meanwhile, you look at San Jose State, and we know I like their offense with Walker Eget, the quarterback, but their defense, at least last week against FCS Idaho, boy, they had their struggles in that game, did San Jose State. So this is another game where with this total being in the 40s, we're not even at 50 with this total. I think it's probably value over with these two teams here in this spot. From a side perspective, Stanford probably can win this game, but I'm not comfortable laying points with them. And in fact, if this number were to hit 3 or better, I might be starting to look at San Jose State, but the over is primarily what I like here. I think both offenses are good enough to get this game into the 50s. CMAC, what do you think here? San Jose State, Stanford.
Yeah, I think you could get over San Jose State. They haven't looked very good, I think, all year long. And the good win was Stanford against BC. I don't know what to make of it. This is usually Stanford would beat up on them. I mean, those are different Stanford teams, of course. We have this number. And I don't know what makes San Jose State and their offense. I mean, they just won, 31-28 against Idaho.
Yep.
And that was down to the wire. They didn't anything in the first quarter. I was watching that game. And then they finally got going.
This is actually revenge for Stanford because Stanford lost last year in November to San Jose State 34-31. But again, both teams combined for over 400 yards of a total offense in that game, 65 points. So I was just a little bit surprised, more than a little bit surprised this total was 49.5.
I know. I'm going to double check Stanford isn't playing too slow because I just looked at, earlier we were looking at teams. They weren't at the very bottom of their pace. So I didn't have really anything here right now as of now. Off.
All right, next up we continue along. Cincinnati and Kansas in the Big 12. We've got Kansas 6.5-point home favorites, 55.5 the total here in this game. I was impressed with Kansas last week. Obviously, it was a great spot, and I laid it with them against West Virginia. West Virginia was coming off the backyard brawl, upset over Pittsburgh. It was just a perfect bet on versus bet against spot. It was a no sweat with Kansas in that game. This is a little different. Obviously Cincinnati is capable at the very least, but I like what I'm seeing right now from Kansas so far this year. And by the way, with Fresno playing some very good football ever since Kansas beat them, that win over Fresno State to begin the season for Kansas is looking better as well with what we've seen out of Fresno State since then. But 41-10 victory over West Virginia. Their defense really outside of Missouri, and Bo Pribula, who of course is Pribula, who's obviously been playing very well at quarterback for Missouri. That's the one game they had issues on defense, but other than that, they played well. You look at Cincinnati. They lost to Nebraska 20-17 their first game. They beat Bowling Green, but kind of fell asleep with the lead. Bowling Green covers. Cincinnati wins 34-20, and then last week they played, or 2 weeks ago they played Northwestern State 70-0. So you can't take much from that. I don't think this program's in a good way. I just don't think I don't think it's on the upward trajectory, this program. I don't think Scott Satterfield's done a particularly good job. I don't think there's anything they do great. I don't think their defense is great. I don't think their quarterback, Brendan Sorsby, is spectacular. He can be good in moments, but I think that game-to-game consistency is certainly something that concerns me about him. Kansas had no problem. Well, 2 years ago, it was not last year, but 2 years ago, Kansas won 49-16 in Cincinnati. So the one previous game between these two programs was Satterfield versus Lance Leipold. It was all Kansas in that game. So I haven't moved on it yet, but as you can tell, I won with Kansas last week. I wouldn't be fading them here. It'd be Kansas or nothing in this one. CMAC, Cincinnati, Kansas.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to fade him too here. I don't know if I want Cincy. Like, is it on the road here? Like, not even a touchdown.
Is it? Yeah.
In this game.
Yep.
So, yeah, Sorsby, you talked about. How good is their defense? They've had these couple good wins. I don't know how great Bowling Green kind of scored some late touchdown there, covered that, of course. Kansas, that was a really good win. We saw them kind of fall apart on the road, which is not an easy place to play, Missouri. So, seems like Kansas could get their points, maybe in this, maybe their team total, if you don't really want to lay the 6.5.
Yeah, I think Kansas team total could get there. Cincinnati.
I don't know what Cincinnati's defense.
Good offense yet. They have not.
Yeah,
Nebraska's not a good offense. I think we've seen that even after the Michigan game. That's not a great Nebraska offense. Dylan Raiola is still not great. And then
he's very average.
Pine doesn't do anything for me facing them. And then you face Northwestern State. This is easily the toughest game of the year for Cincinnati. I just don't think they're that great. So less than a touchdown, I could only look at Kansas side in this game. All right, next up, we've got Arizona and Iowa State. Iowa State 6.5-point home favorites. The total here at 49.5 in this game. I like Arizona, I got to admit. I don't know if Iowa State's that great. The more I watch Iowa State, the more I'm not that impressed, quite honestly, with Matt Campbell's group. I mean, the Kansas State win does nothing now because Kansas State's been really disappointing this year. So that first win of the year against Kansas State over in Dublin, Ireland's not that great. We saw them survive by the skin of their teeth against Iowa in a game that could have went either way. We saw them struggle mightily against Arkansas State on the road a couple weeks ago, and they were fortunate to win that game. That was a battle for Iowa State right to the end against Arkansas State. And you know what was really alarming about that game? Arkansas State's defense has been atrocious. Kennesaw State's moving the ball up and down against them last week. Iowa State struggled for a chunk of that game, moving the football, finishing drives, and putting up points against that Arkansas State defense. That is definitely something that was a bit of an eye-opener for me, and something that when I was watching, I'm like, whoa, that's concerning about Iowa State.
Yeah.
So
we talked about it being a sleepy spot, though.
Yeah, it was. They are 4-0, so they've won every game. But I'm just saying some of these wins lately have not been all that impressive. And even the Kansas State win, Kansas State's gone down the shitter, pretty much since then. And Arizona beat Kansas State, at home more impressively than Iowa State did over in Dublin. Meanwhile, like I said, Arizona, They're off a bye. They beat Kansas State 23-17. So is Iowa State, both teams off the bye, so no advantage there. But, and I know this is obviously a situation where Iowa State, in Ames, it's a Saturday night game, it's going to be a nice home environment for them. But, with Arizona and Noah Fafita and the way he's played and the way they've looked like they've been solid on defense. They've got Ishmael Mahdi, a very good running back. They don't seem to be, missing Tetaroa. They miss him because he was a great player, but they've had other receivers step up for this Arizona team. I'm very interested in Arizona here, plus 6.5. CMAC, what do you think? Arizona, Iowa State.
I mean, I guess how K-State, I just don't know how good they are. I just think they've had all these home games easier. We haven't seen them on the road, really. I mean, I do like Fafita. I like both these quarterbacks, in this game. And how good is this Arizona defense? If it is good enough, they're staying in this game, and then maybe they cover. But I don't know. This is just a tough spot for them on the road. I kind of like Iowa State. I'd be on them here. I just think a lot of hype on Arizona. I got to see more of it. Maybe Fafita could just, lead them to a tight game here. So, but I think last week was just the flattest spots. They're back here at home. Place to be rocking. Tough travel spot for Arizona. If I had to, I'd lay it here with Iowa State.
Next up, there's a couple really good SEC matchups. This one flying under the radar a little bit, but boy, oh boy, this could be a good one here. Tennessee and Mississippi State. Tennessee 7.5-point road favorite, 62 the total here in this game. We know Tennessee has obviously gotten off to a good start. The only blemish was that real tough, gut-wrenching loss against Georgia. They clearly played well enough to win that game, but just ended up falling short in overtime. So the defense was to blame. They couldn't stop Gunnar Stockton with the game on the line. Certainly, Joey Aguilar has been, and this offense have been spectacular. I mean, they're putting up points every week, 41 plus in all 4 games. Even in that game against Georgia, 4-0 to the over for Tennessee as well this year. But against the best offenses they've played, we saw them give up the 26 to Steve Angeli and Syracuse. They couldn't get a stop with the game on the line versus Georgia and Gunnar Stockton. Now they're playing a Mississippi State team that, I've been impressed with Mississippi State offensively so far this year. Blake Shapen's looked good. They've scored points. They got a nice win at home against Arizona State, 24-20. They're 4-0 against the spread this year, Mississippi State. So the betting markets have clearly been lagging behind a little bit when it comes to this team. Now, last year they took it on the chin against Tennessee. But you have to factor in, they were down to Michael Van Buren Jr. last year at quarterback in that game. Obviously, the first year of Jeff Lebby's tenure, and it was just a tough year for Mississippi State all around. You're seeing tangible improvement with this Mississippi State program. If they come far enough at home here in Starkville on a Saturday afternoon to make a game of this, that's going to be the question. And we know at times Mississippi State's able to rally the troops and get up for games like this. Won't be easy with the way this Tennessee offense is rolling. Mississippi State's going to have to score points. They're not going to shut down Tennessee's offense, even though the defense is a lot better for Mississippi State so far this year. This is by far the best offense they've played. I like this over. I'm very much interested in at 7.5 or better lean in Mississippi State, though. I am. For Tennessee, let's be real. The Georgia game was an eye-opener for the defense. Couldn't get a stop when they needed to. And this has been a pretty damn good-looking Mississippi State offense. So I'd be leery of laying this much with Tennessee on the road. I do think Mississippi State's defense is going to struggle with Tennessee. So this is one of those games where I may look more team total for Mississippi State over, because I am not quite sure about their defense. I think their defense is better than last year. How can it not be? Because it was atrocious last year. But this Tennessee offense, man, it's no joke. They've been phenomenal. The Brazel and Aguilar combination in the passing game has been incredible. I definitely love the over here. I kind of want to take Mississippi State, but I might go team total over instead, because I don't know how many stops they're going to get And it's not so much that Mississippi State's defense is still bad. It's better. It's just they're going up against an offense that's really damn good. An offense, though, that is playing on the road. And it is, I believe, let me just double check, because the Georgia game was in Knoxville at Neyland Stadium, and the Syracuse game was on a neutral field. This is indeed their first true road game of the season for this Tennessee team in Starkville, with all those cowbells blaring in the background. So we'll see how they handle it. Like I said, I'm kind of leaning home dog here. T-Mac, what do you think?
You got a fever. You need more cowbell all the time. And I don't know if the Mississippi State's defense.
Yeah,
it's just so early on. Tennessee, I know UAB kind of scored like a couple touchdowns. They're late.
They were kind of garbage
56.
touchdowns.
They were, but
moved the ball. UAB. Hey, they actually moved the ball a decent amount in that game. UAB
a little bit even in the first half.
Yes.
Yeah, they did. So Syracuse did as well. They kind of, Tennessee's just been able. Their offense. I don't know how Mississippi State stops them at all. So it's just tough. Tennessee wins. Maybe it's just the over. Mississippi State can do enough. It gets us over. It seems like Tennessee gets a 35-40, right? At least in this game. So I lean over.
Oh, yeah. I definitely like the over here. Like I said, I am very if I go Mississippi State with them and bet them in any form, I might go for the team total as opposed to the plus 7.5. All right, Baylor and Oklahoma State. We got Baylor 20.5-point road favorites, 59.5 the total here in this game. I got 2 words for you. Lay it. I don't even care. It's 20.5. I'm on Baylor. It's so bad right now with Oklahoma State. It's sad to see it, because this is going to be it. Mike Gundy's not coming back, and I'm convinced of it. He's not coming back after this year. This is going to be his last year, and he's going to end this great run that he's had for 20 years or whatever it's been at Oklahoma State. It's going to end with the worst season by far that he's had. There's just no hope. You saw that Tulsa game. It was horrific. Like, they're getting beaten wire to wire on their home field by a 2-touchdown underdog in that game. And a Tulsa team that just got obliterated by Navy before they played Oklahoma State, and a Tulsa team that couldn't move the fucking football against New Mexico State even before that. And here's Oklahoma State, just absolutely couldn't do anything on offense at home against Tulsa, who don't have – it's not the 85 Bears they were playing last week on defense. And still just a dismal performance. That quarterback is – it's mind-bogglingly bad. Zane Flores, the quarterback for Oklahoma State. He can't even make a simple pitch and catch throw. He had a guy wide open, and
I'm surprised he's even there.
Like, that's the best you've got. I know Haas Haney, the guy that was supposed to be the number 1 quarterback this season, he's out for the year, but you don't have anything better? I guess not. It's ugly right now for Oklahoma State, and Baylor could score on every possession here. Because the defense stinks. Tulsa does not have a great offense. Okay, and yeah, they bogged down a little bit in the second half, but in the first half, Tulsa was going up and down the field against Oklahoma State. This is just a program that's just it's amazing, the decline, and it's like I said, the betting markets have clearly not caught up to how bad Oklahoma State is. They are getting destroyed in the point spread every week. They're not even close to the point spread every single week. So I'm betting against Oklahoma State every week until I see that the number and the betting markets have caught up. And to me, they have not caught up yet. And Baylor, if they want to, with Sawyer Robertson, they could score on every possession, and they could win this game by 4 touchdowns if they want to. So, yeah, I'm laying it with Baylor. C-Mac, what do you think?
I know Gundy, he should go. Like, he brought
the end of the game on a walk-off to Arizona State for Baylor. So they're not going to overlook this game, in my opinion.
Baylor first half, maybe they just jump all over them
even
in this game.
Because they jumped already early to Tulsa. Yep.
They do have a defense, but maybe they can make their defense look a little bit better. I thought it at times played a little bit better last week. Is Oklahoma State offense like horrible? That should make your defense look a bit better. I was saying Gundy, he should just go be an analyst.
An end like this,
right?
Yeah. Some
guys love the coach. I mean, we talk about Gruden. He does good at both, but Gundy should just get paid and go do that. I mean, anyways, that's what I think he should do. He needs to get out of there. But I agree. We were all over Tulsa in that game. It was pretty easy. The quarterback plays offense. Defense, the whole program is just like You're telling me they're going to get up for this? This used to be a big game, tight, usually high scoring. But yeah, Baylor early and often.
Baylor first half. You might split it up even if you prefer that. Yeah, with Baylor first half and full game split. You can definitely.
And you get under 2 touchdowns, it's going to be here, right? First half.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Kentucky, South Carolina. We've got South Kakalaki, 6.5 point home favorites, 46.5 the total. We weren't sure if it was going to be.
He does got commercials already. That's true. I mean, he's already 1 foot in. That's what I meant. Yeah, for sure.
Good point. Yeah, very, very, very good comment there, no doubt. South Carolina did end up having Lenora Sellers available against Missouri, and they gave Missouri a pretty competitive game for the most part, but Missouri ended up turning it into a deficit going into they were down going into the fourth quarter, but a touchdown and a field goal put the game out of reach, and Missouri with the certainly the solid performance. Another really good game from Perbula. The run game was good, led by Ahmad Hardy for Missouri. South Carolina, Sellers, I thought it was a much better game from him through the air in the passing game. All the offense came through the air in the passing game. 302 passing yards for South Carolina, -9 rushing yards. That's right.
Isn't that nuts?
-9 rushing. There was no run game to speak of for South Carolina last week against Missouri. Now we'll see how they fare here trying to run the football against Kentucky, who are coming off a bye week where they beat up on just a woe-begotten Eastern Michigan defense, 48-23. Let's see who's at quarterback here for this game, because Zach Calzada, as of now, is questionable for this game against Kentucky. We obviously saw the backup quarterback, Cutter Boley, get the start for Kentucky against Eastern Michigan 2 weeks ago. I'll be honest, in my personal power ratings, I do not downgrade Kentucky all that much from Calzada to Cutter Boley. They're interchangeable. I don't know if Boley's great, but what I like about his start against EMU, no mistakes, unlike Calzada, who seems to make a bad throw every game. He protected the football, 240 through the air. If Boley's at quarterback, I don't know if Calzada, maybe not, but if it's Boley at quarterback, I might take Kentucky here. And I'm not high on Kentucky this year. I was not high on Kentucky going into this season. But to me, Sellers, you can't be one-dimensional on offense and be trusted to lay 6.5. Not to mention the South Carolina defense. You throw out the Virginia Tech game, because Virginia Tech's offense has been in shambles this year. But outside of that, we did kind of think coming into the year.
Yeah, at times they've been up and down a little here. Yeah,
exactly, C-Mac. And we mentioned this earlier. With South Carolina losing so many NFL players to the NFL draft from last year's team, that was a pretty good defense last year. They lost a lot to the NFL on the defensive side of the football, that it was going to be a defense that was going to drop off this year. Maybe the Virginia Tech game, it didn't look that way. But these last 2 weeks, there's issues. There's holes in that South Carolina defense. 31 points allowed to Vanderbilt, 29 points allowed to Missouri. They're starting to give up big plays. So I think Kentucky plus the points. That's the side I prefer here. C-Mac, what do you think? Kentucky, South Carolina.
Yeah, to me, there's still enough here. I was hoping, because they kind of been scoring some points, a little bit like Kentucky on who they played. To me, this is enough, though. This is an under. Like, this is teams get together, and it's just going to be a slow, 2017 type game here. So I think there's enough at the number to go under. Yeah, I can't lay it with South Carolina. I like them a lot better at home. They've just been, I don't know who they are, their identity on defense, on offense. There's just some real struggles. And Kentucky, yeah, we'll see who's at court. Anybody, by the way, could have been in, as long as you gave time, throw the ball against Eastern Michigan. No offense. They're that bad. It's like Boley he was like 12 of 20, 240, 2 touchdowns. So that's tough to
He didn't light it up against a really bad defense, but to me, there's very little.
He was good enough. There was no, yeah. I mean, you can run it. You just need to hand the ball off. So I think Kentucky can stay in this game too, but the under for me.
All right, UCF and Kansas State. Kansas State 6-point home favorites, 49.5 here in the Little Apple. In this one, obviously, it's been a disappointment for Kleiman's team. There's no sugarcoating it. The loss to Iowa State, losing to Arizona, and they didn't even belong in that game against Arizona. If not for turnovers, That could have been worse for Kansas State against Arizona. Now, the one thing they got going for them is they're at home off 2 losses in a row and a bye week. But they don't look like a team I'm running to lay 7 with. That is or 6 with. They haven't covered a point spread this year. 1-3 straight up, 0-4 against the spread for Kansas State going into this game. Meanwhile, here's UCF. I don't know what the hell Scott Frost was looking at in spring camp and August camp, but I don't know how in the right mind he came to the conclusion that Cam Fancher was going to be his starter week 1 at quarterback. And then, of course, he gets injured, so they have to go to Taven Jackson, the Indiana transfer, who filled in admirably for Curtis Rourke last year with Kurt Signetti at Indiana. And then they have to put Taven Jackson in at quarterback UCF when Cam Fancher goes down. And ever since Jackson's been in there, and he started last week, once I heard that Taven Jackson was starting, not Fancher, against North Carolina, I laid it with UCF. I said, if it's confirmed,
that was the move,
I'm taking UCF. And Jackson was great. 25 of 32, no interceptions, 223 through the air. They did enough on the ground. Their defense smothered Gio Lopez. He was so bad in that game. It's boy, and they paid him a lot of money. The hoodie there, Bill Belichick and his crony there, Michael Lombardi. They paid Gio Lopez.
His crony,
his old buddy. They paid him a good amount of money to come to North Carolina, and they're not getting return on their fucking investment right now. That is for sure. Gio Lopez has been awful to start. He was bad in the TCU game. He was bad against the other opponent that's worth a shit. And by the way, North Carolina, I know this is about UCF and Kansas State, but I'm going to throw this out there. North Carolina, in their 2 games against teams that are worth a shit on their schedule, and I'm not including, Richmond and Charlotte, those games for North Carolina. I'm not including those. Charlotte and NC Central, I'm not including those games, but against, it was Richmond. And, hold on. There we go. It was Charlotte and Richmond. Those are the weaker teams they played. But against the 2 teams worth of shit for North Carolina, UCF and TCU, they were outscored 82-23. 82-23 in those 2 games. So it tells you it's not going well for North Carolina. But UCF plus 6 for me. I mean, I'm not laying 6 with a team that hasn't covered a point spread, a team that's been dramatically overvalued, overrated, overhyped. Doesn't really do anything well. What does Kansas State do well? They're supposed to be a good run team. They haven't been able to run the football consistently.
I know they want to run it. They can't. Yeah.
Avery Johnson can't throw the football worth a lick half the time. That's a problem. What do they do well? And their defense hasn't been as good as people thought. And you can throw on this team. Their secondary is just not very good. And now with the better throwing quarterback, in my opinion, in there for UCF, Taven Jackson compared to Cam Fancher. Again, I don't know for the life of me how Scott Frost thought Cam Fancher was a better quarterback than Taven Jackson. But it doesn't matter. He got hurt, and now the better quarterback is in there now for UCF, Taven Jackson. So UCF for me, CMAC plus 6. What do you think?
I think he was giving him like the old veteran, you're the guy for now, slap on the ass. But it's like, buddy, you're wrong.
What? Oh, you sucked at
Florida. No, I'm just trying to go maybe what he was thinking.
I'm talking to him, not you. I mean, what were you looking at? How did you not evaluate in the spring and in the fall and in August? How could you not come to your senses that Taven Jackson's a better quarterback than Cam Fancher? I don't get it. He's clearly a better quarterback.
Yeah. K-State it's something turns around, which I just don't see it. The defense isn't very good. In the trenches, they haven't looked good at all. They want to run the ball, but that's been difficult.
Army pushed them
yards
around.
Per carry.
Army, don't forget that.
Yeah, and then you got to put it on Johnson. He's just not the guy you want as a pocket passer. He's just not it. UCF to me
better, and he hasn't. He hasn't gotten any better throwing the football.
Not better at all.
No.
It's UCF. Usually I don't love them too much on the road, but I think they're in this game. K-State's been dog shit against the number for a while now. You know what I mean? They've been awful. So if you want to back them now, maybe you're buying low on them. Not me.
All right, LSU.
Cab, what up?
Yeah,
I got Dabby Cab.
Dabby Cab in the chat. Good to see you. Make sure you check out
Dabra
Sports Radio with Dabby Cab.
Yes.
Great show. Him and Dutch. Good stuff. All right, LSU and Ole Miss. Ole Miss 2.5-point home favorites. 55.5 the total. Do we have a quarterback? Does the Lane train have a quarterback controversy on his hands now? My goodness. Austin Simmons has missed the last 2 games, obviously, due to injury. Didn't play against Arkansas. Didn't play last week against Tulane. And here comes Trinidad Chambliss, the transfer quarterback, the backup quarterback who, oh my gosh, he has been freaking incredible in these 2 games against Arkansas and Tulane. Like, it's amazing that they've got a guy this good that's been sitting there as the backup to Austin Simmons. He's come in, he's in full control of the offense. This is from what I've seen. It's opened things up. They've been able to run it. He's got some athleticism to him as well. I've just been so thoroughly impressed. I wasn't sure how much of I'm a fan of Austin Simmons. I wasn't sure how much of a, if any, decline there, much of a downgrade it would be going from Austin Simmons to Trinidad Chambliss in these 2 games that he's been hurt, but there's been no downgrade. Absolutely none. Zero. This guy can run. He can throw. He's got a good arm. He's been accurate. If I'm not mistaken, he hasn't thrown an interception in these 2 games. He has not. He's got 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's thrown for 660 yards in these 2 games against Arkansas and Tulane. Very, very impressive. This will be a step up, obviously, as far as class of defense that Trinidad Chambliss will be up against, because you can't compare Arkansas's defense and you can't compare Tulane's defense. Maybe Tulane a little bit, but not still in the realm of what LSU can throw at you defensively. And LSU has really played well defensively. That being said,
say it real quick, who they played.
Here's the thing with that.
We've seen these offenses of these teams, though. Clemson, Florida. That's a rough watch. They were in that game. They get the touchdown in the 3rd quarter, and then they fucking get the pick, and they still can't do nothing. They just lose. Miami's defense played well. You got to give credit there. But go ahead. Sorry.
That's what makes this this is a great game, man. I can't wait. I really can't wait to watch this one because it's so damn fascinating, because all the numbers, all the stats for LSU defensively show an elite defense, right? They do. Like the defensive numbers are so much better this year for LSU. And when you look, LSU, 64 rushing yards per game, 10th in the country, 2.6 yards per carry allowed, 15th in the country, 42nd in passing yards per game allowed so far this year. The 4.2 yards per play allowed on defense overall, 21st. I mean, these are great defensive numbers. And if you were to tell me at this stage of the season that LSU would keep Clemson to 10 and Florida to 10 points in a pair of victories, if you had said that to me in August, I would have said, wow, LSU has found it. They have arrived on defense. They're finally getting stops. This is finally a defense that we can trust. But now with the eye test, CMAC, to your point, we've seen Florida's offense now multiple weeks in a row. It's garbage. It's not good. And DJ Lagway's become a turnover machine these last few games for Florida. So how impressive is that LSU defensive showing against Florida? We've seen Clemson's offense this year following that LSU loss. It's not been anything that we expected, not been anywhere close to as good as people thought with Cade Klubnik and that Clemson offense. They've been very disappointing. Clemson struggled to move the ball early against Troy for a half. They got behind in the first half against Syracuse last week. Why? Because their offense stalled and couldn't move the football. And, there's the defense kind of hemorrhaging. So Clemson's offense has been nowhere near what we thought. And Florida's offense has been very much struggling the last few weeks. So how much credit should we really be giving LSU's defense? Even though the numbers look great, look tremendous through the first few games of the season. That's what makes this tricky. And the key, I think, for Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss is they get this game at home in Oxford. If you're playing this game in Baton Rouge, it's obviously going to make it more difficult. But you got this game at home. Now it's an afternoon game. And now if it was an afternoon game at Baton Rouge, that would have been better for Ole Miss than a night game. But they still get this game at home. Chambliss has been beyond my wildest dreams how good he's been filling in for Simmons. And now there's a real controversy. Do you throw in Austin Simmons against LSU, the best team you've played, coming off 2 weeks out due to injury, and risk him not finding his rhythm coming off 2 weeks out due to injury, or do you stick with the hot hand, ride the hot hand in Trinidad Chambliss, who's looked outstanding in these last 2 games? That's the tough decision that Lane, that's why he's paid the big bucks, not me. Lane Kiffin's got to make that decision for Ole Miss this week. I'm leaning Ole Miss, by the way. That's my lean here, less than a field goal. I know Brian Kelly dispelled the big game myth a little bit with the Florida game and the Clemson game, winning both of those. But gosh, those 2 offenses, man, are totally disappointing this year, the Gators and the Clemson Tigers. Let's see this defense on the road now. If it's Chambliss, let's see what they can do. Because while the defensive numbers look great, man, Connor, you said it. How much can you give LSU's defense a pat on the back for shutting down Lagway in Florida and Klubnik and Clemson when those 2 offenses have been nowhere near as good as we thought they were going to be? What do you think?
Yeah, you can't go back. I think you have to start Chambliss here. Like if he doesn't look right, then and Simmons is ready to go. I just don't think you make that move. Hopefully Kiffin does it right. Both these coaches, I guess. I guess maybe I take Lane Kiffin. I don't know, because I don't like either of these guys, especially in big games too. But they're facing each other here. So one thing I thought with the total, just to touch on it, I thought this was high for all these defenses. Ole Miss, these games usually get high scoring. Maybe that's just how this one's going to go. And LSU's defense.
What do you make?
Are they for real or frauds?
They look bad against Arkansas, but Tulane's got, Retzlaff was playing well. And that Tulane offense was playing well before last week, and Ole Miss put the fucking clamp down on them.
That was there were so many things that kept me off that game because Ole Miss kind of beat up on teams like Tulane. Like, would I just go through, and then everything else, I thought, man, this could get ugly, and it did. So I had to stay off Tulane. Man, I think this is Ole Miss, or nothing. I mean, did this open 1.5? I mean, it's moved a point. I don't know if it gets to 3 here. It just stays at 2.5.
Well, the thing is, too, Lane Kiffin's got issues at times winning the big game. Everyone talks about Brian Kelly. Lane Kiffin,
that's what I mean,
winning the big game. But in saying that, he has beaten Brian Kelly 2 years. Well, not. I think 2021. It wasn't Brian Kelly. It was still Orgeron. But I think 2023, it was Brian Kelly, and Ole Miss won that game 55-49.
These games have been wild games.
Yeah,
between these two, like
OTs,
high scoring.
That game.
Yeah.
NFL guys. Yep.
And maybe this is one. If you don't like Ole Miss, just wait. If you like LSU, perfect game. We have so many. You're going to be there betting live. If your team score goes up big, maybe LSU does. Take Ole Miss. You get them, over a field goal or a touchdown. So I think that's kind of what I'm going to do, even though I lean Ole Miss in this game a little bit.
I will bet Ole Miss live the moment. Like if LSU, let's say LSU, let's say there's a situation LSU gets the ball to start the game. They drive down, they score a touchdown. I'll probably bet Ole Miss live at that point. You'll get them at plus the points, as an underdog. So that's definitely an approach I might look at as well. All right, USC, Illinois. We've got USC 7-point road favorites, 59 the total in this game. I mean, this is all about heart and pride and showing some respect for yourself if you're Illinois. You got to answer the bell after a game like that. You got it absolutely handed to you. You got fucking stuffed in a locker. That's what happened to you last week against Indiana, 63-10. And look, Illinois was playing some solid football. That was a solid. Now, lots of turnovers for Duke, but still to beat Duke, that was a good win. They had been beating up the teams they should have. There was, for me, I had hesitation to lay points with. I had Indiana in some money line parlays because I expected a close game and a close Indiana win, but I didn't expect 63-10. Didn't expect a blowout like that. But that was damn impressive from Indiana, and it was obviously bad from Illinois' standpoint. What happened? Defense just got blown off the line of scrimmage repeatedly in that game. No pass rush on Mendoza. He had time to throw the football throughout that game. Luke Altmaier was under pressure for a good majority of that game for Illinois. So it was the whole gamut. There's nothing they did well. Offense struggled. Defense couldn't stop them. And that's how it ends up being 63-10 last week in favor of Indiana. This is all about for Illinois. Do you have the pride? Do you have the bounce back ability to put on a good performance here and a strong effort after a loss like that. If they do, they're live, because we have talked about that. And look, last week, offense looks great once again versus Michigan State for USC. Jaden Maiava, man, he looks great. Mekhi Lemon, that the Williams, the running back. I mean, they got a great offense, and they are just lighting up the scoreboard week in and week out. And Michigan State doesn't have a great defense, though, and they were playing a very late West Coast game, 11 p.m. Eastern. That game started Saturday night at the Coliseum, so that was a tough scheduling spot for Michigan State. But still, this USC offense looks terrific. Their defense, though, Purdue moved the football a little bit and had 3 red zone turnovers against USC. Otherwise, Purdue would have put up more points in that game. Yeah. And I thought against Michigan State, there were a few more holes in that defense. Like Aiden Childs was moving the ball, at times for Michigan State.
Talked about it
in that game.
Defense is not good.
So
this defense is not good.
Defense has got some holes now. Let's be honest. The USC defense has not been spectacular here these last few weeks. And we've mentioned this before in games. And Purdue, by the way, the last time USC made this road trip to either the Midwest or the East Coast in the Big Ten against Purdue just a couple weeks ago, they did not cover, laying big points there, 21. They are now, if you include that Purdue game where they didn't cover 2 weeks ago, they are now 0-4 against the spread as favorites on the road in the Big Ten in the Midwest or in the East Coast. And they're 1-3 straight up in those games. The only game they won was Purdue straight up. And they're 0-4 against the spread. And last year, they lost all 3 games that they made a trip to the Midwest or the East Coast. They lost all 3 games outright as favorites against Michigan, against Minnesota, and against Maryland. I mentioned that previously, talking about USC making this road trip in the Big Ten when they go to the Midwest or the East Coast. And they haven't covered a point spread. 0-4 against the spread in the Big Ten, in Big Ten play since USC joined the conference in games either in the Midwest or on the East Coast in Big Ten play. So so right away, I'm not taking USC, just knowing that. Right away, no chance I'm on USC. None. Zero chance that I'm laying 7 in this spot with USC. Not to mention it's 9 a.m. Pacific. This is Big Noon Fox. Gus and Joel Klatt on Saturday. Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt's game Saturday afternoon. So this is a 9 a.m. Pacific time kickoff for USC.
Is it 12:30, right?
Yeah, Pacific. 12 noon. Big noon game on Fox.
Yeah. 12:30. Yep.
Gus and Joel. So for USC, there's a 9 a.m. Pacific game. So this is Illinois or nothing for me. I'm just trying to decide if I want to take Illinois, but it's the only side I'm considering. And I wouldn't be shocked if they're in this game. I think you got to show a little heart, little pride. That's embarrassing last week against Indiana. I think there's enough holes on this USC defense that Luke Altmaier can have some success. So definitely leaning Illinois +7. CMAC, what do you think?
All right, I'll just tell you, I'll take it. I'll take the 7 here. I think after getting their ass kicked, I think this line would have been shorter if that game was tight. You know what I mean? I don't think it would have been 7. I think it would have been 3.5. The defense is just, maybe it's a 59. It's high. It's just back and forth. And of course, that's how SC wants to play.
I could only take the over because I think the offenses can move the football. But here's the thing: it's the noon start, and we saw it with Texas Tech, Utah. They looked like they were in a coma, in a fog for half the game. The offenses.
Yeah, sometimes the crowd's just hype. Defense after just, I'm sure all week. Defensive practice will be, crazy for Illinois. So I'll take them here. I mean, SC's very talented. They have a very good offense. They start the year, 4-0. I think they lose outright, but I'll definitely take the 7.
There you go. Maybe outright. That wouldn't shock me. We saw this USC team last year losing to Maryland on the road. Okay, Maryland on the road in the Big Ten.
Hey, shout out to Maryland since we're not on a Maryland game this week. How about that?
I think that's more
Maryland. That's just what to say. I was going to say it. More Wisconsin. How shitty there.
I think it's more bad Wisconsin, but like I said, still credit to Maryland. Nice win for them. Not even a sweat outright as underdogs against Wisconsin last week. All right, UMass and Missouri. Missouri 44.5-point home favorites, 56.5 the total in this game. UMass is one of those teams where they give up like 40 or 50 to the opposition, but in garbage time, they can punch in like a touchdown or a couple scores. And that's kind of what I think in this game, like 52-10, something like that. And the game goes over the total here. I lean over 56.5. I don't know if I want to lay this many with Missouri coming off the win against South Carolina, and then they go back into SEC play next week. So I'm not sure I'm jumping at the chance here to take or lay this many points with Missouri. We know UMass is still very bad on defense. And like I said, for Missouri after this game, you've got obviously bigger games coming up in SEC play. It looks like after this game, they got Alabama October 11th. Actually, they have a bye week following this UMass game. And then they play Alabama after that, following their bye week. But yeah, I don't want to lay 44.5 in this spot, but do you watch UMass? It's difficult to back that team. They just got, 47-7 it was against Iowa, a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah, tough to back UMass it is. C-Mac, what do you think here?
I know the total is a little bit high. If this was lower, it could creep over. But if UMass does score a touchdown or shit, I don't know, 2. I think last year they had 21 points. Georgia, we all know Georgia, I think, still covered that game. Or no, they didn't.
No, it was at UMass, 45-3, Missouri last year at UMass.
Yeah. I meant Georgia game though. They scored 21 points. I remember UMass last year.
Yeah.
I don't know if that happens. Yeah, that gets you a cover here, 45-3. Yep. It just seems like a work easy type. I can't lay 44 here with Missouri. And do they really want to?
UMass is 3-0 to the over. Missouri's 4-0 to the over this season.
Oh, UMass has been an over machine. That's why I was saying this total though was like just a little bit too. Like if they score, maybe it does go over. But I was hoping this like the 52. You know what I mean? Just because it's one of those, 49, whatever games, 10. So yeah, I'm off. Missouri wins here, but I'm not laying 44.
All right, Auburn and Texas A&M. We've got Texas A&M 6.5-point home favorites, 52.5 the total. This is one of the many good SEC games we've got coming up this weekend. Of course, for Texas A&M, they were involved in one of the true barn burner games of this college football season last week or a couple weeks ago against Notre Dame. What a game that was. They come back and they win 41-40. They're also off a bye for Mike Elko and his Texas A&M team going into this one. So they do get the extra time to prepare. Meanwhile, Auburn is off one of these, physical, hard-fought, tough, down-to-the-wire games against Oklahoma, a game they end up on the losing end of it, 24-7. It's not 24, it's 24-17 against Oklahoma last week. There were some positives from Auburn. The defense kind of struggled against South Alabama. For a decent amount of that game, they kept the run game in check for sure. John Mateer only had 29 rushing yards, and Torrey Blaylock only had 13 rushing yards. But it was the arm of Mateer that actually made the difference for Oklahoma. He was good in the pass. That's what I think has made Mateer kind of special, is the fact that his passing has really improved. 24 for 30.
He's made some big plays.
271 through the air. He's avoided interceptions, which has been big. It was a huge game for Isaiah Satania, the third for Oklahoma. He had a huge game and carved up Auburn's secondary a little bit. That's really the big issue for Auburn, is the secondary is still an area of concern. The pass defense hasn't been exactly that great for Auburn this year. They've given up some big plays in that passing game. The run defense was better, and even last week against Oklahoma, despite the loss, and even in spite of that, the run defense numbers are mediocre. They're giving up one, actually, they're pretty good. They are pretty good. 58.2 rushing yards per game, 1.9 yards per carry. So the run defense has been very good. It's the pass defense that's been more vulnerable. And we are talking about an improved arm, I think you can say, and throwing ability of Marcel Reed for Texas A&M. I think he's done a better job so far this year in the passing game. This A&M offense has looked very solid. Like, he threw for 360 against Notre Dame. Like I said, he's clearly worked on his pocket passing going into this year. And here he is, at 9 touchdowns, 1 interception, almost 900 passing yards on the season. If you were to say to me that going into this game, if these teams played last year, I would say, you know what? With Auburn good against the run, not as good against the pass, it could be trouble for A&M because last year Reed was not a polished passer. He just was not. He has really worked at it. You can tell. He is more accurate. He's making better decisions. You can just tell he has improved his ability to throw the football from last year to this year. And if that's the case, Texas A&M could probably move the football. Jackson Arnold and Auburn, we'll see if they can move the ball because I'm telling you right now, they should be able to because A&M's defense just hasn't been as good. Like even in the win against Notre Dame, they're getting carved up. They give up 40 points in that game. Against UTSA and Utah State at home, they're giving up points. They're giving up yards. Obviously, they've been an over machine, 3-0 to the over. That's kind of where I go in this game is over 52.5. I think it can get there.
Yeah.
I'm riding A&M's overs until they stop cashing at this point. So I think it can get there in the 52.5 range. I think A&M's the better team. I like the spot off a bye week. Normal if they had played this game 1 week after the Notre Dame game, maybe it's a hangover for A&M. But I think the bye week might mitigate an emotional hangover from that Notre Dame game. And I do think they're a better team than Auburn. So I lean A&M. I don't know about laying 6.5, but might put them in a money line parlay of some kind. C-Mac, what do you think here? Auburn, Texas A&M.
Yeah, the spot's well for A&M, and I think that's why we have it at a touchdown, just because the Auburn lost. But one thing, this is the best defense they'll face, Texas A&M, so far. I think it just is, even though they might be able to find some holes. But, you're playing a team like Baylor, Notre Dame, did Auburn, and Mateer in Oklahoma last week, and he finally made some big plays late. So I think that keeps Auburn in it. It's just the spot is kind of shitty. But I have to just as a favorite, Texas A&M is a stay off for me. As soon as he's a dog, we talked about it. They hadn't been a dog in a very long time.
Yep.
They went outright. And then they're back to this touchdown favorite role. That there's just no way I want them.
I can vouch for that. I don't know the exact numbers, but I know he's got a long-term, really porous.
Yeah, it's pretty rough the last couple of years looking at it.
Yep.
Right here. So I think Auburn's in this game. Just because I think they can move the ball on Texas A&M. It's just a little bit of a tough loss last week. But, yeah, I would lean Auburn a little bit.
All right, we've got Oregon and Penn State. This is your NBC Saturday night game. We've got Penn State 3.5-point home favorites, 52.5 the total in this game. I thought, I was pretty confident coming into the season I would be backing Penn State in this spot. They lost to Oregon in the Big Ten championship game last year. They clearly will have this spot circled. I thought Oregon would be down a little bit this year from last year. I didn't necessarily expect Dante Moore to play this well. And look, he's definitely impressed me more than I thought. I had some question marks about how effective Dante Moore was going to be leading this Oregon offense, but he's been great.
They played nobody. No, we got to give that a little bit.
That is true.
Right here.
Neither is Penn State. That's
yes.
Yeah.
Both teams.
That's exactly, and that's another reason why I'm concerned about taking Penn State. I've been more impressed with Oregon, and I have been less impressed with Penn State because not only let's not act like Oregon's played a murderer's row either. I totally get that. Oregon's played Northwestern, Oklahoma State, who we now know is very bad, Montana State, and Oregon State. So they really haven't played anybody, and Oregon State's not even close to as good as some people thought. And then Penn State, forget about it. Nevada, Florida International, and Villanova. My gosh. I'm sick of James Franklin doing this nonsense, too. With starts of the year with just Cupcake City for the first several. Play a tough fucking non-conference game for a change, will you please?
Never. He never will.
Never does it. Never does it. Would rather just kick the shit out of bad teams rather than adequately test his team in the non-conference. That's chicken
He wants to go start 6-0 and then have to play this game. Or Ohio State. He can't. Exactly.
Yeah.
Every year, Penn State, 6-0.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, yeah, both of these teams have faced weak slates. I would argue, though, that Oregon has looked more impressive against their weak slate than Penn State has looked against their weak slate. Because start to look at Penn State. The Nevada game, they didn't cover, and they were only up 17-3 at one point, and it took a while for them to finally pull away in that game. Florida International, and I think Florida International could be a solid team, an improved team this year, but Penn State's up 10-0 at halftime against them. That's Florida fucking International at home. You're up 10-0 at halftime. That's it. And that game, they really didn't get poured on until it was 20-0 with 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. So defense is obviously very good for Penn State. We know that. But I don't know. I am still, after all this friggin' time, I am still not there with Drew Aller. I'm not. I am still not there.
Something about him, right?
That guy and his ability to be a big-time quarterback, certainly at the next level. But I'm talking about being a big-time quarterback to take Penn State finally to the place they want to get to, and that's the national championship game, if not win it all. And I don't know if Drew Aller's that guy. I don't see a pop of an arm. I don't see explosiveness. I don't see great touch on the football at times. I see sometimes panic when he's under pressure, like against Notre Dame in the playoff semifinal last year, where he threw that ugly interception that ended their chances in that game. I'm still not there with Drew Aller as a big-time quarterback. I'm just not. And I've got to see more of it, especially when you're going up against an Oregon team that, was able to move the football with a great deal of success versus Penn State's defense last year in the Big Ten title game, and an Oregon offense that's looked very good so far this year. Penn State's defense might be even better this year than last year. I definitely agree with that sentiment. But like I said, you're not going to probably shut down Oregon completely. Going to have to move the football. You're going to have to score points in key times of the football game against a good opponent, and that's often where Drew Aller has come up short, in some of these games the last couple of years. So I'm all over the place here. I'd rather just sit back and watch. This is another one of these games where sit back and watch. You don't have to make a pregame move. Maybe bet the team that gives up the first touchdown. Whoever gives up the first touchdown in this game, take him live. That might be the best way to go here. But fascinating game. Total, same thing. What do you do with the total? Oregon's offense is scary. I don't know if I want to bet under 52.5 with Oregon involved, but I don't know if I want to bet over 52.5 with Penn State's offense, being up 10-0 at halftime against fucking Florida International a couple of weeks ago. That's not big time offense. It's just not. 10-0 at the half against Florida International at home. It's a 38-point favorite, whatever you were. So it's a great game to watch. I would take Oregon. If you said to me, Ian, you got to make a bet. Yeah.
You got the hook, right? You're going to take it?
At the hook, I lean Oregon.
Yeah.
Dan Lanning, I still trust a bit more than I do James Franklin. Big game. So not easy. It's a night game too. That's a huge plus.
It's a little bit of revenge too. I mean, not the quarterback here.
Wrong situationals pointing to Penn State. No argument. But like I said,
I know I can't do it either.
Raller, I can't. Not at 3.5. I can. If you got close to pick them under a field goal, maybe. But 3.5, no. C-Mac, what do you think? Oregon, Penn State.
It's exactly how I felt. I'm like, it's just like with this hook, they're just perfect line here. The books just know what they're doing with the revenge at home here. Basically, late game. I don't trust Aller and Franklin. We've talked enough about James Franklin. I don't trust him in big games at all. Like, to the total, I worry about it, but I think if I had to, I would take the over.
Yeah.
Like, I think the defenses are good, but I think these offenses are explosive enough where it gets over. Maybe not as crazy as that game last January, and that was inside a dome, right? That crazy game where they were going back and forth. So yeah, and at the 3.5, it's kind of like I think Oregon could be in it. So just as a weight, even with the revenge, all that stuff. I don't know. I got to see it from Penn State. I want this is about wanting your money on it. So they could do it, win here by 10. I don't want my money on it. I don't want to have hundreds, $1,000. I don't want my money on it with Franklin. So yeah, this may be like this one too, live look. In this game. This should be great, though. Everyone will be watching it. That's for damn sure. Finally. It's some fucking big games this week, huh?
Yeah, it is. It's a great slate. Great slate of big games, big-time games this week in college football. And I'm not – obviously, the obvious ones are this and Alabama, Georgia, which we're about to talk about, Auburn A&M, Ohio State, Washington. But But don't sleep on, like I said, don't sleep on that Tennessee, Mississippi State that we talked about earlier. Don't sleep on that. Don't sleep on Indiana, Iowa. That's, a game that's probably going to maybe could be better than people think. There's a lot of good ones this week.
I think, too, you already got Oregon here. Penn State goes up early. I will definitely look to grab Oregon. Like, if they're a touchdown or more, you could get them over a touchdown or near 10 points. I think that's the move if Penn State can get up early.
Alabama and Georgia. This is another great one. Saturday night in between the hedges in Athens. We've got Georgia, 3-point home favorites, 53 the total here in this game. I got to admit, and I like me some Kalen DeBoer, but I'm leaning Georgia. I think Georgia just might be a football team. I love the moxie. I love the composure. I love the mental and physical toughness for Georgia in that game against Tennessee on the road, where it looked like there were many different occasions where that game was going to get away from them, and they reeled it back in. They stayed calm. They executed down the stretch of a close game to win that one in overtime on the road in a tough environment against a good team. Now, you could argue they haven't played anyone other than that, Austin Peay and Marshall, but that was a statement. That was a game where that we've asked ourselves this of Gunnar Stockton. Is he good enough? Is he good enough to win games, big games with his arm and just his overall ability on the road? And he did. He proved it. He is the one that they didn't win because of their defense. Joey Aguilar in Tennessee had a lot of success in that game. They won because Gunnar Stockton made plays in a big moment in a big game on the road. And that showed me that maybe he's ready to step up in these big games against some of these better teams like in Alabama. Now, Alabama has righted the ship since the Florida State loss to a certain extent. They blew the doors off UL Monroe 73-0, and they dominated Wisconsin 38-14. But as we saw with Wisconsin last week, losing outright at home to Maryland, there's big problems with Wisconsin. So like I said, I don't fully trust Alabama on the road. The one thing that Alabama's got going for them is they've totally owned Kirby Smart. And this goes back to when Nick Saban was still coaching there. They
used to beat up on him a lot.
DeBoer and Alabama beat Kirby and Georgia last year, 41-34 in Tuscaloosa. It was 75 points in that game. Both offenses went up and down the field. It was all Alabama early, as Jalen Milroe early in that game was having a ton of success throwing it, running it. Ryan Williams, that is a good point by someone in the chat there. Ryan Williams, the great receiver for Alabama, just carved up Georgia's secondary. And you've got to believe Kirby Smart knows I can't let that shit happen again.
I know, but we just saw Tennessee carve the shit out of them.
Yeah, they couldn't contain
total blow here.
Yeah, Brazel, they couldn't stop him with Aguilar. So they probably knew we got to take that guy away, and they still couldn't do it. And that Georgia secondary, it didn't look great at times against Tennessee. They did
look better in the second half, I guess.
Yeah. One-on-one battle against Brazel, and Tennessee won the battle, and that's bothersome to me because this guy can throw the football. I think Ty Simpson, and I think he's gotten steadily better. I don't think he played that bad in the Florida State game. You can't blame Ty Simpson for Alabama losing that game. You blame their defense because their defense couldn't stop Florida State.
Yeah, he missed some throws, but you're right.
He played solid, and I think he's played even better since then. So I think 53, I like it. This has also been, oddly enough, you would think, wow, Kirby Smart and Georgia, defensive-minded head coach.
Over series?
Yeah, really has been. Yeah, I mean, I think the fewest amount of points we've seen in these recent games since 2018 is 51. We had a couple of games that got to 51, and then everything else has been 63, 65, 65, and then 75 last year when these two teams played. And I think there's as much a concern as I've seen in years, Connor, with these two defenses right now than I've seen in years. Like, they don't look like the same buttoned-up defensive units. Alabama's doesn't look like it, and Georgia's doesn't look like it after what I saw against Tennessee. So I'm probably going to play over 53, and I got to see Alabama do it. We've only got the Florida State game to gauge them on, and what didn't go their way. Georgia showed the toughness to overcome Tennessee on the road in overtime. Georgia's got this spot circled because they lost Alabama last year. At 3, I lean Georgia. I do. So it's Georgia lean for me. I may bet it, and I like the over. C-Mac, what do you think for this big showdown in the SEC, Alabama, Georgia?
Yeah, when I first looked at this total, I'm like, maybe looking at the under. But I talk about it a lot. It's just been the last 5 years or longer. Like with these big teams, just explosive plays happen. They're too athletic, and the games go over. We talk about it all the time. So that makes me. I'm like, maybe this game is just going to go over. That the defenses just aren't there right now, and these offenses are. Yeah, Georgia's had a tough time with Alabama, but I don't know what to make of Alabama because I don't know if they're great. I mean, we just saw them. Wisconsin's not very good, and of course they lose to Florida State. Like, to me, I'd lean Alabama here and take the 3 points, but I don't know if I love it at all because I got to see more from Georgia. I like Stockton, but I don't. In the past, you could have the game manager there at Georgia because the unbelievable defenses, and I'm sure the defense is going to get better. They're just loaded with talent, so maybe it works out. But yeah, Tennessee just kind of did whatever they want early and often. But that was
Colby Young is a good
gutsy win.
receiver though for Georgia. Let's not just give Ryan Williams of Alabama all the love. Colby Young is really good. He was really good against Tennessee as well.
Yeah, it seems like there'll be enough success. It's just
and Zachariah Branch, who we got from USC in a transfer.
Branch.
Addition. Yep.
Yeah. So, man, doesn't get bigger than this on Saturday. Should be good. Yeah.
Another great game. There's so many of them coming up on Saturday. But yes, this is another one for sure. No question.
By the way, why do you have Georgia, Bama, same time as Oregon, Penn State? Would you just set that?
Like the television rights, C-Mac.
Yeah, that's true.
NBC,
ABC.
ABC has the rights to the other, and they both want a big-time game in prime time. That's why.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that means they're going head-to-head. But, NBC's got Oregon, Penn State, and Fowler and Herb Street are going to have that Alabama and Georgia game on Saturday night. So that's just the way it is, unfortunately. But I'll have them on both screens. I'll be ready to rock.
Oh, yeah. I got to have them on both.
Yeah, no doubt. Looking forward to them both. I'm looking forward to this, too. Ohio State and Washington. This is an afternoon game on Saturday. Ohio State, 8.5-point road favorites, 52.5 the total in this game. This is going to be not the easiest spot for Ohio State because other than Texas, they haven't faced really anybody so far this year, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Do we really know how good their defense is yet? I know they played well against Texas, and they frustrated Arch Manning, and they shut him down completely. But as we know, Arch Manning has spent the first few weeks of the season not coming close to the performance level that everyone anticipated of him. So how much credit do you want to give Matt Patricia as the defensive coordinator and that Ohio State defense for the way they played against Texas? And then they really haven't played anybody since then. So, like I said, how good, truly, is Ohio State? Not to mention, look at their schedule. It's been all home games. Texas, Grambling State, Ohio. All 3 of those games at home. Now you're going on the road and making a long trip all the way out to Seattle to take on this Washington team, your first road game of the season. Now, you do have a bye, an extra time to prepare. That is the plus here for Ohio State going into this game. And Washington's coming off the Apple Cup, but it's not like the Apple Cup. It's not like the Apple Cup was
it's not what it used to be.
Game. They dominated. They ran away with it against a bad Washington State team, 59-24. But yeah, it was all Washington. I love Damon Williams. I think he's going to be a great quarterback. He already is showing signs of it. He was really good. Once again, 298 through the air, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's a dual threat. He can run. They got Jonah Coleman, a great running back. Denzel Boston.
Boston's a real deal. He's
great receiver. 2 touchdowns in that game. I would say buyer beware for Ohio State. I don't think this game is going to be easy for them. And like I said, Julian Sayin, he has not been put in a spot where he's been trailing in a game or he's been in a real tight game, down and had to make big time play. I guess you could say he had the nice one to Tate in the Texas game, but now Julian Sayin's making his first road start. We'll see how it goes for him. Now, I don't know about the Washington defense. I will say that. That's still the one area that I have my concerns for Jed Fish's team. Because against Colorado State, they still gave up some points and some big plays. Against Washington State, even though they did anything they wanted offensively, they still didn't look great on the defensive side of the football. And to me, their defense is lagging behind their offense a bit. So we'll see how this one plays out. But I like Washington here. I think this is a close game. This reminds me of Ohio State last year when they went to Eugene, Oregon, out on the Pacific Northwest, and they lost that game 32-31. I don't know if they'll lose this game, but it was not an easy game for them. It was not an easy game for Ohio State at Oregon last year, out in Eugene, going all the way to the Pacific Northwest. Now, they do have the bye. That is a big positive for them, but I like Washington here, plus 8.5. I think they can do enough to keep this game competitive. And like I say, I've got to see this defense against a pretty good offense, and I've got to see Julian Sayin get it done on the road before I'm ready to lay 8.5. I think it's a close game. I think it's a one-score game. I like Washington. Lean over this total as well. 52.5. This total, kind of lean that way. I think Ohio State's more of an under team, but Washington's a dead nuts over team. Washington has gone over.
I don't know what to make of them though. That's the only thing. It's just who they played a little bit. Washington.
Yeah. But again, the total is a mild lean. I'm not really super strong on the total one way or another. I do like Washington though, plus 8.5. Again, I was in the belief that Ohio State's going to, coming into the year, people had their doubts about Ohio State. Would they be as good? And I think the Texas win has kind of quieted that talk. When we look back on it and shutting down Arch Manning the way they did with what we've seen out of Arch since then, is not as good as it looks. So I think they get a test here. C-Mac, what do you think? Ohio State, Washington.
Yeah, this is a tough spot. I mean, how good can Williams do here? I do think this Ohio State defense is pretty good. Again,
his mobility could make a difference. He's not.
It might be
help him to keep plays alive.
Yeah. And they just played nobody. Washington State is so bad. And they put up a lot of points late in that game, too, to kind of make the score. I think they scored 4 touchdowns there late in the game. They had a pick, too, for a touchdown. This is just a tough travel late at night. I mean, I think Ohio State's, of course, the better team here. I was looking at the under a little bit. This is one I'm going to have to sit with a little bit longer. I was thinking under. Or Washington's team total under in this game. If they're in it, I don't know if they will really want a shootout. Maybe they could get into 30s back and forth. And but I think Ohio State's defense could travel here a little bit. So this is a wait for me.
All right, our final game for this edition of the Hitting the Book Show, BYU and Colorado. We've got BYU 6.5-point road favorites, 47 being the total here in this game. Colorado was I don't want to say it was a great bounce back performance because I think Wyoming has got a ton of problems, but nevertheless, It was a much needed win for Deion Sanders in Colorado. He went back and made the decision to go back to Caden Salter at quarterback. Caden Salter rewarded him. He played a pretty good game overall for Colorado last week in the victory against the Wyoming Cowboys. We'll see if he can keep it going here against BYU. I think when you look at this game, BYU, I still don't know how good they are. East Carolina really shot themselves in the foot. Like, I can't express enough how stupid it was to throw a pass at your own goal line late in the first half when you haven't been able to move the football, and it was a pick six, and it totally changed the game. East Carolina was completely and utterly disheartened after that pick six late in the half, and BYU kind of took control of the game from there. Bear Bachmeier is still not lighting it up. His numbers are okay. They're pedestrian, but they're not great. And, he does have good receivers to work with. Chase Roberts feels like he's been here for 10 years at BYU as a wide receiver. But they have good weapons. I'm not laying 6 in this second road. Think about the spot, too. They went from Utah to Carolina last week for a road game, extensive travel, and now you're back on the road for a second straight week and going to Boulder. That's not easy from any stretch of the imagination for BYU here. So I think there's a reason. And I'm not high on Colorado, and we know that they've certainly had their ugly performances this year, like the Houston game. But I think from a spot perspective, I'm mildly interested in taking Colorado. If this hits 7, I will take Colorado for sure. But I'm kind of leaning that way right
Yeah.
now. I just don't know how good BYU is, because I think East Carolina really shot themselves in the foot. Now, defensively, they might be pretty good, because BYU's defenses look pretty good early
They
on. But
look
again,
pretty
Portland
good, yeah.
State, Stanford, East Carolina really, like I said, made a lot of mistakes in the game. There were times they moved the ball, but again, they've just made a lot of mistakes, and the turnovers just really, really crippled them. Yeah, I at the current price, I lean Colorado. What do you think here, CMAC? BYU, Colorado.
I don't know if I could take Colorado. Their defense sucks. If Wyoming was just a little bit better, God damn, and they're horrible offensively. So it's just a tough spot for BYU, and they got it done though. The pick six, the defense has played pretty good, even though they gave up some big plays. East Carolina was moving it, and they kept them from touchdowns too, especially early in that first half. With East Carolina. And I got to see more from the offense. I mean, that's why I liked this spot so much was Bachmeier. I didn't really trust him. Like, I was like, I know East Carolina's defense was great, but stuff the box, see if he can beat you deep. He played pretty good
Yep.
in this game. And Deion's loving saw after that, a big run late. He got Colorado to cover. He's like, that's my guy. That's my quarterback. Yeah, I don't know. So this one is pretty tough. I think BYU is just flat better. They beat him last year pretty handily here, too, if I remember. So, yeah, BYU, I guess, under the touchdown.
All right, leaning BYU. One thing I want to point out here with this game too is they played each other in a bowl game last year, and
yeah, it was a bowl game. Okay,
that was a weird situation though. I figured for BYU it was I love BYU in that bowl game, because that was a situation where, I know Shedeur Sanders played, but I know there's it didn't feel like the enthusiasm was all there for Colorado for that Alamo Bowl last year against BYU, and BYU just took it to them 36-14. So, revenge from the bowl game, but like I said, we'll see. I'm not convinced yet with BYU, which is why I'm leaning Colorado. And you do have
the line's like right here.
2 road games in a row with a lot of travel now, back-to-back weeks. Tricky for BYU.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. You're right about Colorado, though. There's issues still in the trenches. D-line's got issues. The O-line is still a work in progress, and that can be an issue against BYU, because BYU normally has been pretty solid along the line of scrimmage, and we'll see if that comes to fruition once again here on Saturday. All right, there you have it. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Another great edition of the College Football Hitting the Book Show. Kong's Clips, one of our favorites. Congrats to him on a great Saturday last week.
Yeah, my guy.
Football. Gualo, Myron Kidd. We'll shout out everyone. Rasheen Tukes, Andrew G, Zoe, Robert Carlson. Appreciate everyone joining us. Old E, the real TP. Thank you to everyone. Manny 04. Thanks to everyone joining us. James A. Dabby Cab, of course, was in here earlier. Shout out to you, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Appreciate everyone joining us here on this. Timothy Hake. We thank everyone. Like I said, great turnout here for a Monday afternoon, as always. So, again, we thank Phil the Kill, Jorge Herrera. Thanks to everyone. As always, Oldie, Redbeard. Thanks to everyone for joining us once again here on the College Football Hitting the Book Show. That's a wrap. We've got 3 more MLB Hitting the Book Show episodes to do tomorrow, Wednesday.
Low baseball. How about low baseball today? 3 fucking games.
That's it.
Great.
Yep, no doubt. So we got 3 baseball shows this week before we wrap up the first season of the MLB Hitting the Book Show. We will try to give you some short form videos and clips, just little brief 1-2 minute videos for any bets we like during the MLB playoffs. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We are getting so close to 1,000 YouTube subscribers at the Hitting the Book channel. Memberships.
And we'll have memberships up probably by tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm thinking. So I just had to do a few things. So we'll have that all ready to go. So we appreciate you guys. And we want to give it to all the people that get it and that are in here, all the time. So especially for them, and to give out some other shit, especially like Fridays, some NFL content, stuff like that. or just questions and shit like that. We'll be able to do it, and maybe these smaller college football games we don't get to, stuff like that. So
no doubt,
it'll be good.
We'll definitely do maybe a little more college football bonus stuff on, say, later in the week, like on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. We'll just jump in, and if you're a member, you'll get access to a special little video that we'll record, and we'll post it just for the members, and you'll be able to see just a little brief 1 or 2 minute, rundown of bets we like on the, the group of 5, conference games during the week. So we'll do some of that. We'll do some baseball playoff plays and videos for the members once the memberships are open. So make sure you become a member, and also make sure you subscribe to the channel and spread the word. Like I said, we're almost at 1,000 subscribers to the channel, which is a great thing to see. We appreciate all the support that we get from you, for sure. C-Mac, any last words before we say goodbye?
Actually, no, you nailed it. Sometimes, Benno, you just run the show right and say everything at the end. That's good. Just shout out to you guys. Appreciate it. Hit the like button on the way out. Let's have a big week. Let's win big.
Oh, yeah. One last thing. Of course, individual video clips of these games will be up later
Yes, these will be out later. Yeah.
YouTube channel. So make sure you check that. We'll post them like we've been doing the last few weeks as well. That's a wrap. Great slate of college football. I can't say it enough. Make sure you're dialed in and tuned into these games. This is the best college football slate of the season so far, and the deepest as far as quality games. So I am very much looking forward to it. Should be a great week of college football. For Connor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we will be back with you next Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, for another edition of the College Football Hitting the Books show. Until then, class dismissed.
Peace.